What's up, everyone? Welcome to Normal America Show. I am your host, Rob Miller. The camera looks like crap today. I don't know what's going on. Send me money so I can get a new camera now. I actually have an idea. I'm thinking of getting a new phone and then using it as the camera, at least while I'm mobile. I think that already my phone works pretty good as a camera, and I think that that might actually be the way to go. So that might be something I do. Want to get a new phone. The reason is my phone's capable. It's the damn battery. Like I have an iPhone X. Man, it's like it can't hold a charge more than 2 hours now, and it's kind of a big deal at work if I'm on the phone a lot. And we like to drive a lot. Me and the people I work with, and we like to listen to music and stuff on the phone as we're driving or videos. And it's terrible. It's terrible. My phone can't hold a charge, so maybe that's something that I'll do. Not much, Tom Servo. So, shout out to everyone who's watching: Bush, Papa Propa, Surian, Creus, Tom Servo, Poop Midas. The Twitch OnlyFans pipeline's going to claim another victim. Not me, I hope. Despite my raunchy photo that I put up on Twitter there last Friday, right? So, welcome to Normal America Show. I am trying to be consistent, hitting all 5 days this week unless something crazy happens Friday night. Got a good week lined up for you. Today it's a show with just me. Tomorrow, we're going to start a monthly series. It's going to be one hour show a month with me and Lecture Fan, looking ahead to the 2022 election. So, I think that'll be cool. You'll be able to catch that, at least the first episode, on both mine and Lecture Fan's channel. So it should be cool. Wednesday, I got a debate at 8 p.m. Oh, that, by the way, that'll be 7:30 p.m. tomorrow, all times Eastern. Wednesday, I have a debate on COVID and vaccines with someone named Lorenzo on Politically Provoked. Thursday, Friday, we'll see what's happening, and then Monday we start all over again. Next Wednesday will be my debate with Richard Spencer, the white nationalist. I don't know where that debate's going to take place. I might stream that exclusively to Odyssey because, look, in my position, I'm debating white nationalists because I'm not a white nationalist. That's why I've debated race realism. Move the mic closer to me. That's why I've debated race realism, realist, and things like that. I don't believe in that. Nonetheless, being a conservative, social media is looking to kick me off anytime they can. So, probably not going to host that debate on Twitch or YouTube. I'm going to get back this week, starting tomorrow, to doing YouTube videos. And also trying to restream my live streams to YouTube the following day. So, we're going to try to do that. So it should be good. I'm excited for the show tonight. There's a lot to talk about. I'm fired up. First off, my Steelers got crushed, as I expected. Looked good for a quarter. Not really. Their defense looked like they were trying their best. The offense just looked terrible. Big Ben too old. So I'm holding up great. Thanks for asking. The iPhone 13 has a great battery. See, that's what I'm thinking. And they have a good camera too, apparently. And if I'm going to be doing some sort of traveling to events and stuff, it'd be nice to have a camera and thing like that on the phone. The debate Hunter Avalon. I have. It didn't go so well for Hunter. And then he was offered to debate me again on the Crucible when I debated Sansel and had a scheduling conflict or something like that. I would debate Hunter again. I don't mind. You want a link to that debate? Let's see if I have one. Oop, 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 oop. Oh, I didn't plug my headphones in either. That's not good. Let's find that debate for you. This is there's that debate. So yeah, should be a good week. Tonight's show is just going to be me, I guess, unless someone's really disagreeing with me and wants to call in. But should be good. So yeah, the Steelers lost. Yeah. You know, I used to be the type of person that watched tons of sporting events. Several things have changed. What's up, Aftershock? Thank you so much for the sub, man. I really appreciate it. How you doing, my friend? The woke nature of sports, I started to lose interest. I still watch casually. And then just being busy and being a father. I don't even have cable anymore. So, you know, playoff game I'll watch. Still Pirates fan, obviously, but we'll talk a little sports. Yeah, I think Hunter, listen, Hunter's young. I thought that he debated. He's better than most of the people I debate. But I think that, yeah, he got bit, like I said, I think he bit off more than he could chew, and so his default was to be chippy about it. I don't think it worked out for him. So he's better than debating someone like Sonsel, and I don't even dislike Sonsel, though. We'll get to some of that today. Not him specifically, but just people on the left. But Sonsel, you can't get a word in edgewise, and he's interrupting you, and he's just... Sonsel, I honestly think he doesn't do it on purpose. He doesn't understand debate structure, right? So, like, for example, if I said something like this, if me and Aftershock are arguing, and Aftershock says, we'd be talking about anything. Aftershock says, the Patriots deflated their footballs every game in the Belichick-Brady era. And I said, that's been debunked. Or no, let me rephrase it. If Aftershock said, I've heard that it's possible that the Patriots deflated their footballs in these games. And I said, it's been debunked. The impetus is then on me. I'm the one making a definitive statement. Aftershock just said, it's out there that this could be the case. And I said, no, it's been debunked. Then I am making the definitive case, and it's up to me to prove that. When you say something's debunked, that means beyond almost all shadow of a doubt, it's been proven that it's not true. So Sonsel will say, it's been debunked that COVID could have came from a lab. And then I'll be like, but here's a bunch of reasons this could have came from a lab. Prove to me it's been debunked. And he'll say, prove that it did come from a lab. Here's a bunch of evidence saying it could have came from nature. Right. That's not my claim. It could have came from nature. You're the person claiming it was debunked. Well, by debunk. And it's things like that are incredibly frustrating. I thought I was going to debate Destiny on January 6th. I wasn't aware of that. I was supposed to debate Destiny on Burisma and sort of the Hunter Biden working for Burisma in the Ukraine. He said that he wanted to do a debate on that. I'd debate Destiny on January 6th as well. I'll debate anyone on that. That's fine. Look, there's two things potentially going on when it comes to debating people. There is the idea of, are people running from you? And that, so some people just don't want to debate me. Or is it that they're just busy? I tend to think it's the latter, usually. If I can't prove it, then I go with the latter. People are I know I'm incredibly busy, and other people are busy, so, especially if you're a big streamer, and it's your career, like someone like Destiny, even someone like Vosh, or someone like Hassan, or something like that, who am I? I'm a blip on the radar, So, I get it. I don't get upset about that type of stuff. But yeah, when do we get a George Floyd? That's Biden. He said that George Floyd's deaths was more impactful than Martin Luther King. Did you see that today? Fucking joke. You're aware that the right is now the party of Martin Luther King. You get that, right? Even if King had all these other beliefs, which no doubt he did, right? Then I get tired when I say, judge people by the content of their character, and people say, did you read the rest of what Martin Luther King said? Yeah, I don't give a shit. That was his most salient thought. That speech and that thought came at a time in this country when that's exactly the message this country needed to hear, and it was exactly the correct point. And it's still the exact message that this country needs to hear. The identity politics, judging people based on immutable characteristics like sex or like race, is ridiculous. Thank you, Free Thought. I really appreciate the sub. I really do. So I don't give a shit if I agree with the rest of what he said. That part I agree with. I also don't agree that he apparently was an adulterer. I don't respect adultery, but that thought that he had was, he was courageous in giving that message. It was at a difficult time, and it was salient, and it was eloquently put, and simply put, which is equally important. But that idea of judging people the content of their character, which most represents Martin Luther King when we think of him, that's now a right-wing idea. You understand that? Now, it's not exclusively right-wing, but overall, people on the right have adapted that far more than people on the left. People on the left judge you based on immutable characteristics. That's the point. Now we have Martin Luther King Day. How did the president celebrate Martin Luther King Day? Well, he said some nice words about King, but then also had to shoehorn in that a drug addict that pointed a gun at his pregnant girlfriend's belly, he was kind of more important in the grand scheme of things. He achieved more change with his death. Good job, Biden. But hey, remember, poor people could be just as smart as white people, right? Says the guy who eulogized KKK member Robert Byrd. He gets a pass. Remember, I was thinking about this the other day. I'm still going to do this. I'm going to go back and review the Biden-Trump-Chris Wallace debate for the 2020 election. But one of the things that was ridiculous that I was doing a lot at the time, dealing with a lot, was every time Trump was in public leading up to the election, people said, will you condemn white supremacy? 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 And he had, and there was a video someone put out that like over 27 times he condemned white supremacy, including in all three of his statements post-Charlottesville, specifically calling out by name many times the KKK, the neo-Nazis, etc. How come Joe Biden doesn't get asked that every week? You know, and then when Trump get tired of it, and he'd be like, why do you keep asking me this? I already did. Oh, well, why didn't you condemn it this time? It would be easy to just say, yes, I condemn it again. Why aren't they asking Joe Biden? He eulogized Robert Byrd. He said so much racist shit, right? He pushed the crime bill. Why isn't he asked every week? Did you see the other day Ted Cruz flipped out? This is fantastic. Ted Cruz flipped out because someone asked him, like, why aren't you wearing a mask? And Cruz was like, why don't you ever ask Joe Biden that? Or people in the Biden administration? Why don't you ever ask the Democrats that? They're giving press conferences without masks all the time. Why don't you ask them why they're not? That's what pisses us off. He didn't say pisses us off, but he's like, it's that double standard that we find ridiculous. Go ask them. Why do you ask us? Yeah, aftershock, maybe that's something I'll do too, yeah. So, I started doing that in debates with people. I'd be like, do you condemn white supremacy? They'd be like, of course. And then 30 seconds later, I'd be like, do you condemn white supremacy? I already said I did. Oh, I noticed that you didn't just say, yes, I condemn it there. Why hesitant? Why bring up what you condemned in the past? You can't condemn it again right now? That's what they did to Trump. So I'll remember that in MLK Day. I'll continue to fight against the racist, the race grifters, the people that just want to judge us by our skin color. Except they think it's okay because they're progressive. That's what I'll do today. Did I see the fight between Dylan and Infrared? I did. We'll talk about that. Twitch politics. What a scene. Good stuff. No, I didn't watch the whole thing. But yeah, we'll look at some of that. So today I wanted to talk about authoritarianism and fascism. Right? I was talking to Vivian on CTV's channel the other day. Oh, we need to deplatform fascists. How do you define fascism? Well, she's got some little, it's basically groups that want to keep other groups off of their own special area. So therefore she wants to censor people that she disagrees with. She don't get the irony there. Fascism is one of those words that you see the left, like racism. They just They changed the definition. So when they engage in fascist-like behavior, well, fascism can only be done on the right, just like racism. Racism can't be done by people of color. It's okay to use racial slurs against white people. It's okay to judge. We have several examples of just this week. And I talked about it last week. Of state agencies and the CDC recommending or only giving, and Trump talked about this in his speech that he gave here in, where was he, Arizona? Giving out medications, life-saving medications based on race, when it's not the most prominent factor. That's actual systemic racism. That's what it is. We celebrate that here on MLK Day, right? Isn't that weird? All the people on the left that want to talk about systemic racism, when we see clear-cut examples of systemic racism that cut the other way, all of a sudden they're not that concerned. What's that? Discrimination against Asian Americans in Ivy League schools? Democrats vote against, including condemning that. Over and over again they do. Don't hear many Democrats speaking up against giving black farmers money but not white ones. Don't hear many Democrats speaking up against state governments and the CDC recommending monoclonals go to people of color before white people, even if the white person has other more serious factors, such as hypertension, old age, etc. But anyways, on fascism, which party is engaged, both at the political level and this is the important part that I want to get to today. A lot of times I focus on the people at the top, and those people should be focused on more. Your neighbor might be a jerk, and they might have radical political beliefs, right-wing or left-wing, but probably they're just an average person, and they don't have a lot of sway. That doesn't mean that you still don't talk about those sort of things, but most of the time you focus more on, if your neighbor thinks, that we should be an ethno-state, that's troubling, but not as troubling as if the head of CNN thinks it, or the head of Fox News thinks it. You understand? There are tiers of influence in our institutions. So people involved at national level politics, people involved in corporate media, people involved in corporate America, people involved at the high levels of social media, people involved in academia, people involved in the entertainment industry. All of these people shape our culture and our policies far more than just the average Joe Schmo. It's not that the average Joe Schmo, it's not relevant to talk about their opinions. It's just, in the grand scheme of things, they're not influencing as many people as those in these institutions. So I talk a lot about that. I go into these debates and you get this bullshit, disingenuous nature that you get so many times, and it's almost exclusively on the left. Say what you will about the right, but even the people on the right that I really despise, like the race realists, they're open about their opinions. They ain't hiding it. Yeah, that's right, Aftershock. Fanatic agreed that it was wrong, and then once I said, well, that's literally the policy we have, like affirmative action, that's what it does. He's like, oh, we don't have proof of that. Yeah, because as long as it benefits a rate, or it benefits the race that he wants, then it's okay. That's how it goes with that sort of thing. So I spend a lot of time talking about institutions and people, movers and shakers, as my friend Andrew would say. And like I said, I'll debate all these disingenuous people, all that we saw, I'll say something like this. We saw riot after riot occurring on the left in 2020, 2021, particularly in 2020. Months upon months of it, hundreds of examples. Most of the left made excuses for it. And then they'll always say, not me, it wasn't me. I didn't say that. And by the way, it was mostly peaceful, but not me. We had all this abuse, the corruption with the Russia investigation. All we heard was Russia. Not me. I never said that about Russia. It was never me. It wasn't me. Every time I debate someone, 80% of the time that I'm debating someone on the left, they're that one person on the left that didn't do any of that. And then I'll say, fine, maybe not you. Sometimes you can prove they're full of shit. Other times, okay, fine, I'll take your word for it. Nonetheless, we can see that the average Democrat that was in some sort of position of power, why don't you just focus on me? Why don't you focus on what's here? Why do you have to focus on other leftists? Leftists in fire. What about me? Focus on me right here. Sure. Okay. Thanks for the sub, White Wolf. Really appreciate it. You have COVID. Well, get better, man. Hopefully you got Omicron. It doesn't seem that serious. But what I wanted to talk about today is not just those institutions and the people in prominent positions in those institutions being authoritarian, but increasingly, average people that just identify on the left. Now, a lot of this I'll be talking about polls, and let me say this as a caveat. Polls oftentimes can be bullshit. I get that. But the poll just backs up something that I felt for a long time anyways. And it's backed up by conversations that you see happening online and in life. And so we're going to talk about some radical stuff that I think is coming on the left with Democrats, both in our country and other countries, in the United States and elsewhere. And then sort of what average people that identify on the left seem to be saying. So I thought that we would start with this. The Salt Lake Tribune, mainstream newspaper out of Salt Lake City, biggest paper in the state, their editorial board, so not an opinion piece, but basically the people in charge of the paper, the editorial board. I want to show you what they put in their newspaper this week. It says, were Utah truly a civilized place, the governor's next move would be to find a way to mandate the kind of mass vaccination campaign we should have launched a year ago. Going as far as to deploy the National Guard to ensure that people without proof of vaccination would not be allowed, well, anywhere. Now, we talked about this earlier. This isn't some rando. It's not some random Twitch streamer with 50 viewers like me. Biggest newspaper in the state of Utah. Mainstream outlet. They want the National Guard to make sure that people that aren't vaccinated can't go, well, anywhere. Now, first off, just think, before we get into the insanity of this, let's look at the practicality of it. How would this help the situation? We're told that Omicron is now the prevailing strand of COVID. And we're also told, not by people like me that get censored on YouTube for talking about COVID, which is why I basically can't stream there now. But we're told by now, the people we have to listen to. The science. Dr. Fauci, he's not just a scientist, he's science, right? We're told by them and the CDC and the talking heads on NBC and CNN. What are they telling us now? The vaccines don't prevent transmission, at least with Omicron. Now, we've been talking about this a while. I've been saying this. Go back and watch that debate I had with Hunter Avalon. Go back and watch the debates I had with Dylan Burns. Why was it so difficult to find the data of how much the vaccine supposedly stopped transmission? Even if we take at face value that the vaccine reduces your chance of having serious effects of COVID, the only way that mandates make sense, and I'm still against the mandate even in this world, but the only way the argument morally or even strategically holds any weight, if it's not the vaccine protects you yourself, but the vaccine protects you from infecting other people. Well, now we know it doesn't with Omicron. It doesn't. And we don't even know how much it did with the previous. But forget the previous variants. Right now, today. Now, we actually see Britons considering lifting their vaccine mandate. Other countries that have had vaccine mandates are considering lifting them. Because Omicron, how many people has Omicron killed, by the way? Last I heard it was 5. I assume that it's more than that now. Premier virologist out of Finland, it's the only paper I read on the fatality rate of Omicron so far, said that the fatality rate is 0.04%. That makes it half as deadly as the average flu. Now, I talked about this way back in March of 2020 when Trump and a bunch of Trump supporters were giving me shit. By the way, I was a Trump supporter. I volunteered for his campaign. But right around that time, when I was offered a job in the Trump campaign, which I didn't take because they said I couldn't do social media anymore, and I was like, well, screw that. I was talking about this. I said, this is why it was important to discuss thresholds. What is the threshold that the government thinks it has for when it could shut down our rights to certain things, like our right to assembly? Such as, we had lockdowns. What's the threshold? The government thought that was going to save how many lives? Does it give them a justice? Because surely to save one life, we would say, no, you can't do that. You can't say, and there were people on the left saying this, well, if we even save one life, that's crazy bullshit. The logical extension of that is, everyone is welded in their house. Well, if that saves even one life, if no one's allowed to drive anymore, if that saves even one, of course we understand that's stupidity. I don't even have to go into why. So there has to be a point. 10 lives? No, clearly has to be more than that. 100? No, clearly has to be more than that. Start getting into tens of thousands? Okay. Well, wouldn't that justify all sorts of things then? Banning sugary beverages. Making the speed limit 45 mile an hour everywhere or 30 mile an hour everywhere, right? What's the threshold? 50,000 lives? 100,000? How many lives did they think they would save with mask mandates, with lockdowns, with vaccine mandates? How many lives? And we didn't make them answer that. And I said, if you don't make them answer that, two things will happen. One, if you don't know the threshold for when the government says it can take these rights away, how do you know what the threshold is for when you're ready, when you can have them back? And the best example I could give was in Pennsylvania. Tom Wolf, after he said, we're going to have a statewide strategy, then he said, nah, it's going to be county to county. Then he said state, then he said county to county, then he said state, then he said county to county, and so on. At one point when it was county to county, he instituted the vaunted red, yellow, green system. So if your county was red, you basically had full lockdowns. If it was yellow, there were restrictions, like you could only have 20 people indoors or 25, depending on where you were, and things like that. Certain things were shut down, but certain things were starting to be relaxed. And then green was basically back to normal with simple precautions. In Pennsylvania, there was a county called Sullivan County. It's sort of to the northeast of me. Sullivan County at one point had, in it, the entire time that COVID had existed, had 2 cases. 2 in the entire county. One of which was someone who was visiting from New York. 2 cases. And my former radio co-host, Todd Bartley, who was a journalist and got to ask Health Secretary Levine, he said, Secretary Levine, Sullivan County is still yellow and they only have 2 cases. If 2 cases aren't low enough to go green, what is? In other words, red means, oh, the county looks like it's in bad shape, so we're going to go red. Yellow is like, well, it's still a little bad shape, so we'll be yellow. And green is, things are looking pretty good, so we'll go green. If only having 2 cases isn't enough for green, what do you need? Will we ever be green again? And Health Secretary Levine's answer was, we'll have to get back to you. You see, they didn't have a plan to reopen. It was about control. The data didn't matter. Trust the science. Fuck that. They didn't even think it through. It was just bullshit they told us plebes. So we'd stop asking questions. Yeah. You're red, yellow, green. You'll get to green at some point. We don't have criteria for what that means. And you had certain counties that had higher cases and higher fatality rates that were yellow than other counties. Inexplicably, they didn't have answers. Now you hear all these people that were like 15 days of slow spread. Make no mistake about it. Yes, almost all the Democrats, but a lot of Republicans too bought into that shit. And I fought with them. And now you have a lot of Johnny-come-latelys, both politicians in the Republican Party, that had to wait and see what their focus group said before they were like, oh yeah, these lockdowns are bad. But also just regular people that bought into this shit. Now they're like, these lockdowns are ridiculous, oh, blah, 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 blah. Well, fuck you. Some of us tried to warn you. Didn't want to hear me, though. Didn't want to hear people like me in March of 2020 saying this is going to be to exploit you. It's going to be to impose control and more government control, particularly on the people that our government thinks are dissidents. That's exactly what happened. That's why you could go march with Black Lives Matter, but you couldn't go to the Trump rally or go to work or go to church. You could go to the casino in Nevada, you and 50 of your friends, but you couldn't go to church. You could go to the liquor store in New Jersey, but you couldn't go to church. Couldn't go to work, but you can go to Black Lives Matter to loot and riot. See how that works? Hell, even my governor, Tom Wolf, did that. Said we were cowards if we wanted to go to work to feed our families, and then 2 weeks later violated his very order to go march with Black Lives Matter. Again, when asked about it by my friend Todd Bartley, he was like, yeah, you're right. I violated my order. Next question. So, what are you going to do about it? What's his name? The new mayor of New York City. Eric Adams, is that his name? We'll get to the tweet earlier. He's at the Knicks game last night, hanging out with 20,000 of his close buddies watching the Knicks without a mask. But kids today in New York City, they're wearing masks in school, aren't they? Hey, as long as the sophisticated crowd feels good, right? That's all that matters. It's important that the mayor be able to watch a Knicks game comfortably. Kids, fuck them. Who cares if it hurts their development? Screw them. They can wear a mask. Who cares if it's not comfortable? Who cares if it impedes breathing? We get to virtue signal as adults. Wear the damn mask, kids. Shut up. You're not allowed to go to school. Virtual learning for you. Eat lunch outside, you plebes. Stupid kids. Don't they know they're not an important voting bloc? So we don't have a threshold for when we can get our rights back. But then, also importantly, what's the threshold then for when we can lock down again? So this is how I put it, right? I'm 37 years old, so I won't ask everyone how old you are, but let me just ask you this question. In your lifetime, pre-COVID, have you ever heard about diseases that could potentially come on a year-to-year basis that were going to be very serious? So you'd be coming into the winter and you'd read news stories that said, uh-oh, here comes an illness. It could be serious this year. I remember SARS. I remember Mad Cow. I remember MRSA. I remember West Nile. I remember bird flu. Swine flu. I remember hearing all that shit. What was the name of the guy? I can't even think of his name now. The guy that was responsible for the Imperial College model that the United States and the UK used to justify their lockdowns initially. That guy had been predicting basically catastrophic pandemics since 2002. He predicted in 2004 Mad Cow was going to kill hundreds of thousands of people in the UK. It killed 12 or something like that. Now, can we agree with all those illnesses, MRSA, swine flu, West Nile, Mad Cow, etc., 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 that, I'm 37, so in my adult life since 2002 that I've been hearing about, Neil Ferguson, that was the guy's name. Can we agree it would have been a mistake to shut down the economy, to mandate vaccines and shit like that? That it was unnecessary, right? Because it wasn't the huge pandemics that were predicted. And yet, given the standard that we have set with COVID, the next time that a West Nile-like virus is appearing, we're going to shut everything down. We're going to force you to take medications. Yeah, that's right, Syrian. Neil Ferguson, the same guy that was the lockdown guru that actually then got busted. Was that him? No, I don't think that was... That might have been not the scientist, but the politician guy that... And I said, what are we going to do? We've just set the precedent. And you can already see, there's tons of articles out there. Oh, the swine flu that we might see next year is going to be even worse than COVID. New type of MRSA virus, even worse than COVID. So what happens when they say that? And all of these pharmaceuticals that lobby are like, oh boy, we made trillions of dollars scaring the shit out of people with COVID. Now let's do it with swine flu. How would we ever know? But Rob, what if they do that and then swine flu only kills like a dozen people? They'll say they saved us. That's what they'll say. It's non-falsifiable. Dr. Oz isn't doing so well in PA. Now this brings us back to deploying the National Guard to ensure people without proof of the vaccination wouldn't be allowed anywhere, says the editorial board at the Salt Lake Tribune. How would that help? The dominant strain at this point is Omicron. How's the vaccine do against stopping spread of Omicron? Anyone? First off, before we even get that, what's the death rate from Omicron? We don't know for sure right now, but it seems like less than the flu. So if the Salt Lake Tribune saying we have to deploy the National Guard to prevent people that aren't vaccinated from this disease from going anywhere, why wouldn't they do that with the flu every year if the flu's more deadly than the Omicron variant? They gonna force you to get a flu vaccine too? Or the National Guard will prevent you from leaving your house? How many vaccines a year will you be forced to take? Secondly, how effective is it at preventing transmission? Because I've heard the director of the CDC say it's not. I've heard the CEO of Pfizer say it's not. We got to come up with a new booster. So now, right now, in this point in time, not last year, not a year from now, right now in this point in time, is when we have people calling for vaccine mandates, and we have people like the Salt Lake Tribune saying the National Guard should be deployed to make sure you can't go anywhere. Not last year, not next year, right now at this point in time. When we know the vaccine doesn't prevent transmission of the dominant form of COVID. How authoritarian can you get? It doesn't matter if it works or not. It's the authoritarianism that is the point. It was like the clip I showed you Friday, where one woman in the Biden administration, she was like, we're going to send N95 masks to every American. We're going to send them a mask. And I think it was Peter Doocy was like, but that mask is only good for one day, right? How do you think this is going to help anything? And she said, we're just sending the message that masks work, that these masks work. That's all that matters, sending the message. Doesn't matter that this won't do shit. That'd be like saying, hey, sorry, we know you can no longer afford to put food on your table, but we're going to send every American a loaf of bread. Problem solved. And someone says, how's that going to help? People can't afford food. We're just saying food's important. We're just sending the narrative that food's important. So we're going to give everyone one loaf of bread. Geez, thanks. Oh, it was Ferguson. Okay, Sir Ian. No problem, cleaner. Thanks for being here. So that's what a mainstream newspaper's editorial board, that's what they said. Now, I'm curious, how many people that think that the National Guard should be used to force people that aren't vaccinated to do stuff, like to not go out or to not go to restaurants, blah, blah, blah. How many of them would have thought it was authoritarian to send the National Guard out to stop riots when leftists were rioting? Notice that? Did you ever stop and notice, in the theme of things, all the shit they accused Donald Trump of being a fascist about, they actually advocate for? Remember, Trump was going to load gay people into trains and black people wouldn't be safe in this country and blah, blah, blah. He'd have policies directly harming black people. Now we have policies from the Democrats directly harming white people. You get medication if you're black, not if you're white. You're lower on the list. You get money if you're black, not if you're white. You're lower on the list. You can't go shopping or go to a restaurant unless you have a form of photo ID. They said ID was racist when you asked to have it to vote, but apparently it's not racist when you have to have it to go buy food for your family. The National Guard was authoritarian to deploy. Remember the New York Times editorial board, or the New York Times writers were all going to quit when Tom Cotton was like, whoa, maybe we should use the National Guard to stop these riots that we see nationally. Oh, that's authoritarian. But then as soon as they had power, they were like, we need the National Guard around the Capitol. We need the National Guard to make sure that people are taking vaccines. All of these authoritarian impulses that we were told Donald Trump had, we now see it's just mainstream in the left. Just mainstream. You don't take the medication we like, fine, you can't work places. Nike, I think it was, came out and was like, if our employees aren't vaccinated, we're going to let them go. And someone on Twitter was like, hey, Sonsol, do you still think that the left is the party, the Democrats are the party of the working people? He said, I'm for mandates. I don't see the problem with this. See? Workers' rights. Now, what's funny is, I'm guessing if you drew a Venn diagram, at least 80%, probably much higher than that, but at least 80% of the people that are like, absolutely, workers shouldn't have the right to choose whether or not to get the vaccine. I'm all for firing them or imposing sanctions on them. Even though I claim to be for workers, I'm all for it. I bet if you draw a Venn diagram, 80% or more of those people would have been telling you 2 years ago that the pharmaceutical companies were all racist or greedy, money-hungry pigs that we shouldn't trust. But now not only do we trust them, we fire you if you don't take their medications. Even though we now see that they're admitting, including the CEO of Pfizer, the vaccine doesn't stop transmission. Yeah, I talked about it a little with the Supreme Court. So as always, it's a half-ass measure, thanks to Kavanaugh on them. But they allowed sort of the mandate to continue through with healthcare workers, which is horseshit. And when it came to putting a stay on the mandate through OSHA, the easiest point, which Gorsuch made, and probably the most important point is, you can't do this through executive fiat. What good is Congress and the legislative branch if you could just say, well, there's umpteen executive agencies, and we'll just enforce shit through them. If you want a vaccine mandate, push it through Congress. But they won't. Despite the fact that Democrats control both houses of Congress, they won't push a vaccine mandate through Congress. Do you want to know why? Because it's not popular. Because they would lose elections. So they're like, well, fuck it. We'll just do it through executive action then. But it was only a stay, and we'll see. We shouldn't have to rely on the courts to prevent this sort of stuff. And then, of course, you heard brilliant geniuses like Sotomayor say, 100,000 kids on ventilators, and what's the difference between people and machines? It just goes to show you how ridiculous they are. Oh, I say it all the time. Go back and watch my shows like after the 2020 election. And I had all these people calling in, Rob, the Supreme Court's going to overrule the election. The Supreme Court, watch and see. They're going to overrule the election. They're going to give it back to Trump. And I was just like, yep. Uh-huh. We'll see. People are dead serious. They're like, yeah, we'll see who's laughing in a month. Okay. I'm not promoting anti-vaccination on Twitch. Show me one time where I've said not to take the vaccine, ever, in the history of me streaming. One time. Where have I told anyone? In fact, I've argued with people that said that the vaccine is just strictly poison. I don't see evidence of that. I'm against mandates. So now we have a vaccine that we're admitting doesn't stop the spread, and it doesn't matter. And it's not just people in power, like people in the media, like Salt Lake Tribune and other people in the media or corporate America or the entertainment industry or politics. It's not just them. It's average people. It's Twitch streamers, but it's also regular people that identify as Democrat or on the left. Not all of them. But a lot of them, they're like, yeah. And when you're like, but wait a minute, why, the vaccine mandate, it doesn't even prevent the transmission. Isn't that the only cause for a mandate? Now, Dylan Burns, this is one thing that's funny, right? Many people, instead of just saying what their honest opinions are, they're trying to think ahead and trying to win some sort of argument. So when I had this discussion with Dylan Burns about vaccine mandates and natural immunity and shit like that, I said, listen, the only reasonable case for a mandate is that it stops transmission to other people, right? That's the only way you could justify this. He says no. That's what he says. Because he saw the writing on the wall. Because once we would see that vaccines were incapable of stopping the spread, then all arguments for a mandate are out the fucking window. So he says, no. You should have to take the vaccine for your own health. It has nothing to do with stopping spread to other people. It's for your own health. And I do agree, by the way, that I think, especially with vulnerable people with a lot of comorbidities, that the evidence strongly suggests that vaccines tend to stop you from having as likely severe consequences. I do agree with that. So it's a therapeutic more than a traditional vaccine. And why wouldn't you take it if you have these comorbidities and things like that? If you're listening to me, an out-of-shape guy, for health advice, you're making a mistake, find a doctor that you trust, have your unique situation, your comorbidities, your age, your natural immunity stance, etc. Talk to your doctor, make the best decision for yourself. You decide to get vaccinated, more power to you. You decide not to, more power to you. I don't give a shit. That's a private medical decision between you and your doctor. None of my business. I'm just against the mandate. Simple. But Dylan says, no. It's for your own personal health as well. That's what the mandate's about. Okay. Well, if that's the case, then I assume that we'll have mandates about people like me that are overweight, right? Mandates on that, correct? Oh, it's bad for your health. Diabetes, the most costly preventable medical condition in the United States. I guess we'll have mandates about people being overweight. We'll have to check blood sugar every day at work, right? And then you could get down that rabbit hole of authoritarianism. My body, my choice, says the people now saying, nope, the government has the right for your own good to force you to take medications or be tested every day. How would these people have sounded during the AIDS crisis? Remember, because at one point, and Fauci was there, by the way. Go look into that. Go look at what Fauci was saying during the HIV/AIDS crisis, the 80s and 90s. Go see what HIV patients thought of Fauci. So, for example, if you're unvaccinated and for your own health, that means you're more likely to have a severe consequence of COVID. Therefore, you have to get tested every week or you have to be forced to take some sort of medication. How would this have looked in, say, the 80s when they said, oh, you're gay? That means you're more likely to contract HIV, which could spread to other people. But even if not, for your own health, we're going to force you to get tested every week at work. We're going to have you take a blood test every week at work. How's that sound? These authoritarians would have fit right in. We want to know your sex life. We want to know your medications. We're going to force you to take medications if you're going to work here. Yeah, we're going to fire you if you don't agree with this. That's where they would have been. So you can see the tyranny and the authoritarianism, the fascism that some of these people on the left and Democrats are advocating for when they say it has nothing to do with preventing the spread. It's for your own health. But for the rest of them that say, no, this is different. It's just about preventing the spread. It's a pandemic of the unvaccinated, right? You're putting me at risk because you're unvaccinated. Okay, well now it turns out that the vaccinated are also putting the vaccinated at risk because the vaccine doesn't stop the Omicron variant. Now what? Why mandate then? Well, Rob, even if it doesn't prevent transmission, it's still a good idea because it can prevent the chance from you going to the hospital and prevent serious consequences. Great. Okay. What's that have to do with the mandate? You don't get to mandate someone make healthy choices for themselves. The argument for it is people that were vaccinated were at risk because people that weren't. Now we see that the vaccine isn't preventing transmission. So what is the rationale for the mandate? They don't give a shit. Because it was never about keeping people safe. It didn't even make sense when they were saying it. Joe Biden said in his speech where he first said that he was going to do this OSHA mandate, he said that if you're vaccinated, your chance of being hospitalized with COVID were 1 in 160,000 a day. Now that's not dying. That's just going to the hospital with COVID. Which would mean that it would take over 10 years for you to even have a 10% chance of ever having to visit a hospital with COVID if you're vaccinated. Now, there's two possibilities here. Either one, Biden's just full of shit when he says that. Okay, probably a reason not to enforce this mandate then. If the guy can't even give us numbers that are credible when he's forcing this authoritarianism on, why should we trust him? And people told me that. Biden was just full of shit with his numbers. Like, that's somehow a defense of his mandate. The guy's just lying to you. Anyways, trust him and everyone has to take this vaccine. Are you shitting me? Or those numbers are accurate. In which case, why do you give a shit if you're vaccinated if other people have it? You're basically immune. You're not going to have serious effects. So why do you give a shit? It makes no sense. It never did. They didn't give it. They didn't care. They didn't care at all. It wasn't about public health. It never was. That's why they violate the recommendations all the time. They'll go to protests. They'll go to Black Lives Matter. They'll go to sporting events when they feel like it. They'll go to parties like Obama's or the Emmys or the Oscars. They'll go to the French Laundry. They'll do all this shit. AOC will go and she'll be taking pictures with drag queens in Florida and cheek to cheek and all that. They'll do that shit. They'll go to the Knicks game. Because they don't give it. It was never about them being fearful. It was about controlling you. That's what it was about. The science said in every developed nation we could see over and over it was replicated from even way back early in 2020 when this started. Kids were suffering almost no severe consequences from COVID. And the safest place for them to be seemed to be school. And there were all sorts of, not only were they more likely to get COVID outside of school, but there were all sorts of other horrible things that were happening to kids. Suicide rates going up, education development going down, emotional problems, malnourishment, abuse. All of these things were skyrocketing by keeping kids out of school. And yet, they continued to push, the Democrats and the left continued to push for locking kids out of school. Despite the fact that every other developed nation said no. The same people doing that kept telling us, trust the science, trust the science, trust the science. And yet, when it came to our children, they conveniently ignored all the science. They ignored it all. The CDC, Walensky, she came out and said, yeah, I think kids should be back in school. And then we know from emails that were released, the largest teachers union in the country contacted the White House, and 3 days later, the CDC said, actually, maybe we will have kids locked down from schools. Great! Teachers union and their political whims and financial whims more important than children. But trust the science. Okay, Rob, but you only want to focus on the children. But you're so selfish because what about the most vulnerable populations? If you cared about them, then you would be vaccinated and you push for the mandates. Yeah, let's talk about those most vulnerable So I already see you said fuck the kids. Screw them. That's what the Authoritarian said. But what about the most vulnerable populations, such as old people in long-term care facilities? How'd the Democrats do with that one? Well, see, they told us, if you want to go to, like Tom Wolf, for example, told me in Pennsylvania, this is what he told Pennsylvanians, if you want to go to work, if you want to go to church, you're a coward. Try to make sense of that. If you don't cower in fear in your home, you're a coward. That's what Tom Wolfe said. If you say, I'm going to continue to live my life, I'd like to be able to work, and I'd like to be able to go to church, and I'd like to be able to go to a restaurant, I'm going to live my life. He'd say, oh, that's cowardice. What? That's what he said. A true brave individual stays at home and is afraid to ever live. That's bravery. The coward tries to live his life as usual. You see the Orwell doublespeak shit that we see? Borderline personality. You're telling me. So he told us that. We were cowards. And then, of course, he violated his own order and went out with Black Lives Matter. He said, yeah, I did that. Okay. Cowards. That's what he said. And they said, if you go out there, you're a coward. And do you want grandma to die? That's what they were saying. Go back and look. March 2020, April, May. Oh, we have to do this. You want grandma to die? They're vulnerable. They knew it back then. We all knew it. We knew. People with comorbidities, the very old, people in long-term care facility who have compromised immune systems, they're going to be most at risk from this. And so we locked down healthy people. And the reasoning we gave was, well, you have to lock down to protect the vulnerable people. And then we sent COVID patients into the nursing homes with the most vulnerable people. That's what the Democrats did. In at least 5 states, including my state of Pennsylvania. By the way, we just found out last week, as I predicted, now we know that Whitmer hid the amount of deaths in nursing homes by $44,000, or 44,000 people. Up next, Pennsylvania, New Jersey. Mark my words, count it. We'll find out that they hid deaths in nursing homes too. So they talk about caring about the children and caring about the most vulnerable, the old people. And yet they're fucking exploiting both of them and damaging both of them. But it's not just that. And it's not just the United States. Next article. From Canada, the Ottawa Citizen. Military leaders saw a pandemic as unique opportunity to test propaganda techniques on Canadian forces, reports say. A plan devised by the Canadian Joint Operations Command relied on propaganda techniques similar to those employed during the Afghanistan war. Remember that article from the Telegraph that I was basically the only person talking about? From May of 2021? Use of fear to control behavior in COVID crisis was totalitarian, admits scientists. Members of the Scientific Pandemic Influenza Group on Behavior expressed regret about their unethical methods. And I went through and I read it, and it was a bunch of scientists that were working with the government, and they intentionally spread fear to get people to do shit that otherwise they wouldn't have done. A bunch of stuff even unrelated to COVID, says one of the scientists. Remember? No one really talked about that. No one talked about it. In May of 2021. May. 7-8 months ago. No one's really talking about it other than me. Apparently no one thought it was a big deal. Now we have the Canadian government was using propaganda. The military was like, oh boy, let us get in on this. We'll use the same propaganda techniques that we use in foreign countries that we invade, like Afghanistan. Let's test them out in our own populations. Sounds great. And if you think that shit wasn't being done in the United States as well, you're crazy. But the left's okay with it. The Democrats are okay with that. Great, more fear. Good job, military. Good job. Thank God they lied to us. And more fear. Lock people down more in their houses. More mandates. Oh, not us, though. When we want to go do something, it's different. But those other people, those damn unvaccinated people, I'm exempt from propaganda from my military. Let's go after the unvaccinated. Who's the fascist again? Yeah, I'm going to start streaming on Odyssey. I'm going to try it out maybe here tomorrow to dual stream. I got to get it to work. So. Didn't hear many people talking about that. To go along with what I was just talking about. Oh, you work for them now? Great. Maybe I'll hit you up. I'll ask some questions on how to use Restream to stream there. It has some crazy like bit system or something. Do I need money to be able to stream there live? I don't know. Going back to what I was talking about previously, again, my favorite person to follow on Twitter when it comes to COVID, Phil Kerpen. He quotes this out. Finland's director of health security recently expressed skepticism about the country's vaccine passport system. Quote, if it is the case that vaccines don't prevent infections, even if they prevent illnesses, then the entire basis for the pass would fade away. No shit. We don't force people to lose weight or to take blood pressure medication before they can go in public. So why would we force them to take something that doesn't prevent transmission? But it's not just about COVID. Let me ask a question, right? Name me a country more progressive than the United States. When you think of progressive countries, name one that comes to your head. Like more left-wing progressive than the United States. Let's just hear some results in the chat. Canada. Yeah, that'd be Canada and the Scandinavian countries, right? Those are the countries that come to mind for me. So I just read you an article about Canada's military saying, oh boy, we can't wait to use the same propaganda we use in foreign countries that we invade against our own people. Okay? How progressive of them. How progressive. Right? How progressive. Remember Jordan Peterson? What was the bill he was fighting? Bill C-16? Right? And it was about compelled speech. Let me sum it up in my own way. That's probably bullshit and wrong. But this is the general, if you're wondering about Bill C-16. So there's a bill, and to steelman it as best as possible, the idea with the bill was so we're not bigoted towards people that are trans. We don't want to misgender them and things like that. And so we'll have this bill that says, and Jordan Peterson's argument was, I don't accept a bill that could compel speech. Right? Now, he, like me, is against hate speech laws anyways. Right? But an average hate speech law says, you can't say this. So a hate speech law might say, if you're a state employee, you can't use racial slurs. You can't use racial slurs on state grounds. Right? So if I'm in a state-owned school, a public school, I can't drop the N-word. Or I'll be dismissed from there. Or fined or jailed or whatever. But the unique feature of that is it says you can't say certain things. And Jordan Peterson was arguing, Bill C-16 in Canada said, you have to say certain things. And that's infinitely more dangerous. Because once you tell people you have to say things, that leads to a tyranny, and he talked about how we saw examples of that in Nazi Germany and in the Soviet Union, etc. Compelling speech. If you could compel speech, you could compel thought. That's the danger. In a nutshell, that's what was going on. And the people defending Bill C-16 said, you're nuts. It's not going to be used like that. That's ridiculous. We won't see that. Blah, 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 blah. You won't go to jail. And Jordan Peterson said, can you fine people if they don't use the terms? And they said, well, yes, it does say you can fine people. And Jordan Peterson said, what if you don't pay the fine? Then what? Okay, yes, I guess you could be jailed. Now, people that say Peterson's wrong is like, well, point to a case. Where do you see a case? It hasn't happened. We haven't seen a case. Now, there was the one case of the guy who had a son, a biological male son, who was transitioning to female, and he was arguably losing custody. A whole ball of wax. But what's important to note is, when laws are written and passed like this, just because you might say, I think people will use discretion and not go by the letter of the law. So just because we could fine you for not using the right speech doesn't mean that it would really be used like that. The problem is, legally it could. And we may see it in the future, and we may see it much faster than we think. So, allow me to show you a new law that's been passed in Canada. Canada's new law declares that you are guilty of conversion therapy and subject to 5 years in prison if you counsel your biological male to accept his male identity. So here's the definition. So they've outlawed conversion therapy. Sounds great, right? People say, what's conversion therapy? Well, in the name, in the words, when I debated Demon Mama, she said conversion therapy is hooking electrodes up to guys' testicles to stop them from being gay. But what it is a practice of therapy where people go that are LGBT that's designed to stop them from being LGBT. Now, the fact that it's illegal is fucking insane. That's insane. I don't think anyone should be forced to go to conversion therapy. That's ridiculous. You want to be gay? Have at it. You want to be trans? Have at it. It's different when you're talking about parents, though. But forget that. But if I'm gay, right, and I'm like, for whatever reason, I'm gay and I don't want to be. I can't help it. I feel physically attracted to men. If that's the case, and I say, oh my God, it's doing so much damage to my family and, whatever. Maybe I'm married, but I have homosexual feelings. Why shouldn't I be allowed to go to conversion therapy? Why shouldn't I be allowed to voluntarily make that choice? Who the fuck's to tell me? That's ridiculous. In fact, I think that's bigotry against LGBT people. You're saying that they don't have the wherewithal to make their own decisions about what type of therapy they would like to attend? That's ridiculous. Why shouldn't they be allowed to attend? It's not going to affect straight people. They're not going to go to conversion therapy. So now a gay man or woman who may legitimately wanted to have gone to conversion therapy, now they can't do it. It's illegal. How is that not bigoted? How is that not authoritarian? Now again, I don't think people should be forced to go to conversion therapy. That's different. But if you have a kid, it becomes a different calculus. But it's not just conversion therapy of, oh, you're gay and you want to be straight. We're also talking about trans issues. So now if you have a kid who's like biologically a male, 8 years old, and says, I think I'm a woman, you can't send them to a therapy that says, maybe you should try to continue with your biologically assigned sex. Now we know that over 90% of children that are recommended for treatment for gender dysphoria grow out of it with no interventions. But now, arguably, it is illegal even for doctors to be like, look, just because it's natural sometimes as a young man or woman, you might be confused about your sexual identity or your biological sex. That's natural. We don't want to jump right into things. We don't do that for anything else. If you go in to the doctor, for example, and you say, I have chronic pain, I want fentanyl. The doctor has every right to be like, whoa. Let's check you out and then I'll make a diagnosis. But with this, doctors don't have that right. Gender-affirming care, they call it. So if someone goes in and says, a 12-year-old goes in and says, I'm biologically female, but I'm actually male. The doctor doesn't have the right to say, well, maybe not. Let's look and let's find out if that's the case. If they insist, no, I'm female, okay. Now let's see how they define conversion therapy. It's now illegal to have conversion therapy in Canada, so let's see how they define it. Practice, treatment, or service designed to. So practice, that would be what we traditionally think of a conversion therapist. Treatment or service. So it doesn't have to be conversion therapy, a specific place says Rob's conversion therapy place. This means a treatment. So you could just be a doctor, a psychologist, for example. It is now illegal and considered conversion therapy for you to have a treatment that does one of the following. Change a person's sexual orientation to heterosexual. So if a person comes in and says, I don't know, I'm confused, I don't know if I'm attracted to men or women, any therapy that could be designed to say, well, we think that maybe you are just heterosexual, is illegal. Change a person's gender identity to cisgender. Change a person's gender expression so it conforms to the sex assigned to the person at birth. So if you have an 8-year-old that was a biological male that says, I think I'm female, taking them to a doctor that says, actually, your sex is male, is now illegal. Repress or reduce non-heterosexual attraction or sexual behavior. What does that mean? Let's get back to that one in a second. Repress a person's non-cisgender identity or repress or reduce a person's gender expression that does not conform to the sex assigned to the person at birth. But first off, it's illegal to have a treatment to change a person's sexual orientation to heterosexual, but not to homosexual, right? Notice it specifically says that. It doesn't say it's conversion therapy to change a person's sexual identity, period. It says to heterosexual. So if you're a doctor and you want to convert people that say, I think I'm straight, and they're like, no, actually you're gay. That's fine. That sort of conversion therapy is okay. And people will say, well, practices haven't traditionally existed like that. Maybe not practices, but I bet there's been therapies and treatment that have done that. So that's okay. Notice it only goes one way. But more importantly, look at D here. And F. I want to really look at D and F. D, repress or reduce non-heterosexual attraction or sexual behavior. So it is considered conversion therapy and illegal to have a treatment or service that represses or reduces non-heterosexual attraction or sexual behavior. You get that? In other words, illegal to repress sexual urges that are non-heterosexual. I'm married, right? Hypothetically, a man's married, goes to a psychologist, says, I've been having sexual fantasies about men. I'm considering cheating on my wife with a man. Psychologist is like, that'd be a huge mistake. You know, you have a lot built with your family, you know, your wife, you spent years with your wife, you know, you should really consider not giving into these sexual urges. That's illegal. You can't say that. If a person goes in and says, I'm considering cheating on my wife with a woman, a man goes in and says, I'm considering cheating on my wife with a woman, by the letter of the law, that's okay. The psychologist could tell you, don't do that. The counselor could tell you don't do that. But if you say, I'm considering cheating on my wife with a man, it is conversion therapy for that person to say, according to how this is written, conversion therapy for this person to say, I wouldn't do that. Oh, you're repressing my sexual urges, my non-heterosexual sexual urges? You're repressing them? That's conversion therapy. Let's look at that again. It is now illegal, considered conversion therapy and illegal, to repress or reduce non-heterosexual attraction or sexual behavior. What if your non-heterosexual attraction or sexual behavior is being attracted to someone of the same sex who's underage? Who's a family relation? It doesn't give exemptions. The letter of the law says that repressing or reducing of that sexual attraction or behavior would be illegal as long as it's non-heterosexual. You can't do that. If someone comes in and says, my name's Tim, I'm a 40-year-old man, I have sexual attraction and urges towards other boys that are underage. That is a non-heterosexual attraction or sexual behavior. It is illegal for that to be repressed or reduced. Look at F. Repress or reduce a person's gender expression that does not conform to the sex assigned to the person at birth. So if your 12-year-old decides that they want to wear, they're a 12-year-old boy, and they want to wear women's lingerie in public, well, if you try to avoid that, that's repressing or reducing their gender expression. Who's authoritarian again? It is now illegal to try to get help if you want to stop deviant sexual behavior or cheating if it's non-heterosexual. If you're gay and you want to go get therapy to try to stop being gay, it is now illegal. But Rob, people don't make the choice to be gay. People don't make the choice to be gay. They're born that way. Maybe. Maybe not. Maybe that's true for some people. Maybe it's not true for other people. We trust straight people to be able to go to a therapist and talk about their sexuality in any way they want. Why don't we trust LGBT people? Are they so weak and fragile that we can't allow them to talk to therapists that want to tell them, maybe you should try to be heterosexual? Is that how fragile the LGBT community is? We need to outlaw that? But Rob, just because it's written that way doesn't mean that it'll be used that way. You're just... you'll see. Maybe. Maybe we'll go 3-4 years and we won't see anything like it. But then maybe we will. You had also told me 2 years ago, there's no way that left-wingers will be suggesting that we use the National Guard to prevent people from being able to go grocery shopping if they don't take medications from Big Pharma. But we're here. Now, believe it or not, I haven't even got to the real story that got a bug up my ass today about the authoritarian left. Rasmussen, one of the most accurate pollsters, one of the only ones that isn't heavily Democrat, did a poll. We'll go through it. It was asking people about COVID. Now, these are people. Again, take polls for what you want. But to me, even though polls could be inaccurate, this rings true to me based on conversations I've had with people, not just on Twitter, not just on Twitch or YouTube, but actual left-wingers I know in real life as well. "29% of Democrats support taking your kids away if you refuse to get vaccinated." It's almost a third. 59%, or almost 2/3 of Democrats, support you be putting on house arrest if you don't get vaccinated. 48%, almost 50, or almost half, of them say you should be jailed if you question the vaccine online. "55% of Democratic voters would support a proposal for state governments to fine Americans who don't get vaccinated. 45% of Democrats would favor governments requiring citizens to temporarily live in designated facilities or locations if they don't get the vaccine. President Biden's strongest supporters are most likely to endorse the harshest punishments against those who won't get the COVID-19 vaccine. Among voters who have a very favorable impression of Biden, 51% are in favor of government putting the unvaccinated in designated facilities, and 54% favor imposing fines or prison sentences on vaccine critics. More than half of Biden supporters think you should be on house arrest if you're not vaccinated. About half think you should be put in a gulag. Isn't this what they accuse Trump of? Isn't that exactly what they accused Trump of? I remember hearing it. I thought it was the most fucking insane shit I'd ever heard. Donald Trump, he's going to put us in chains. He's going to put black people in chains. He'll literally have gay people placed on rail cars and taken off to gulags. Black people and LGBT people won't be safe. He'll put them in gulags. Now around half of Biden supporters think you should be on house arrest or in a fucking gulag if you don't take medication from the same big pharma that they've been telling you since the movie Sicko came out that is completely corrupt. Who's the authoritarians again? Trump was a fascist. What did Trump do? How'd that work out? Black people financially were doing better under Trump than they had been for years past. In fact, he probably pandered too much. Remember, we couldn't get prison reform done under Obama. Trump got it done. Trump was the first Republican candidate to fly the rainbow flag at his convention. What did he do? He appointed ambassadors that were gay, like Richard Grenell, who, by the way, the left attacked nonstop. But no, he was going to put them in gulags. Now the same left that was worried that Trump would put his opponents in gulags are like, yes, let's put our opponents in gulags. Remember when Project Veritas filmed that Bernie supporter that worked on Bernie's campaign, and he said, when we talk about funding education, we're talking also about re-education programs for Trump supporters. Remember that shit? And everyone on the left was like, oh, that's just one crazy guy. We'd never do that. We'd never put Trump supporters in political facilities. Less than a year after Biden's in office, and about half of Democrats polled are like, yeah, gulags, house arrest for people that won't get vaccinated. Who's the fascist? But that's not even the most troubling number there. We're skipping the elephant in the room. Now, when I talk to people on the left about political violence, which, again, you'll be hard-pressed to find someone more staunchly against political violence on the left or the right than me. Let me grab a water, because this... Talked about this last Friday on the show. We talk about this a lot. But Rob, the country's systemically racist. It's systemic racism, and violence is the language of the unheard. And yes, traditionally violence might be bad, but when we're talking about racism and slavery and things like that, the backbone of the country is important slavery. And that's so important that it justifies violence. No, it doesn't. No issue, even the one I'm about to talk about, does. In the abstract. If you're black and they're literally coming to put you in a gulag because you're black, you're fucking right, you could fight back. That's not what's happening. Racism's an important issue, don't get me wrong. Absolutely, it's way overblown of how bad it is in our country today. But certainly it's despicable, and being a victim of racism, particularly with people with power, is heinous. But what's your life about? I have this discussion with feminists a lot. Back in the day, I had this discussion. We're talking about the patriarchy. What's the most important thing in your life? You people that are watching. It's going to be different for everyone. That's okay. But let's just get some things. What do you value most in your life? I know what it is for me. Yeah, that's what it is for me. Family. Unquestionably. My loved ones. And family could be biological, or it could be loved ones that aren't biological, that you still consider your family. Air. Air's important. Many people would die for their family. About your kids. Anyone out there have kids? Yeah, McLinebacker has kids. Anyone else? 2 foster kids. Let me ask you, those that have kids, I don't know what your financial situation is. If you lost your job tomorrow, and it literally meant putting food on the table for your kids, would you work 2 shitty jobs? Would you work 80 hours a week? Would you work 90 hours a week? Would you give up all your hobbies and all your free time and recreation time to put food on the table for those kids? Would you do that, parents? Free Thought says, of course. I would. I do. Though I like my job. What kind of fucking monster wants to take your kids away? Kids, by the way, that are at almost no risk from serious effects of COVID. They want to take your kids away if you don't take a vaccine which doesn't prevent the transmission of COVID. Trump, stop trying to sound like a gay frogs guy. Is there more than one? %29 of Democrats, that's nearly 1/3, support taking your kids away if you refuse to take the vaccine. Can you think of anything more authoritarian? And by the way, that's just the people that were willing to tell a pollster that. And study after study shows that people are oftentimes afraid to tell pollsters things that they really believe but think would be unpopular. So that means that About 30% of Democrats polled felt comfortable saying, yeah, take away people's kids that don't have the vaccine. Now, you can say what you want, and I talk quite often and have on this show today about the authoritarian impulses of people in positions of power in the Democratic Party or on the left, whether it be politically or in other institutions. But if this is anywhere near accurate, nearly 30% of Democrats think your kid should be taken from you if you're not vaccinated. Ignores that vaccines don't prevent transmission. Ignores that kids are almost all relatively safe from serious consequences of COVID. Ignores things like natural immunity and discussions about that. None of that matters. 30% of Democrats nearly say, you take away your kids. I told you before, so one of the people that's a Democrat or a left-winger that I'm friends with, my friend Tom. Tom helped run my campaign, even though he's a Democrat. He's a registered Democrat. So in 2019, when I ran District 12 special election, my campaign manager was my friend Tom, that was my former debate partner. Again, a Democrat. But he's a moderate Democrat. He's someone that's reasonable. I talked to him on the phone and in person here recently, and I said, it's my estimation that around 20% of Democrats literally wish people that are unvaccinated would die. And he said that number might be a little high, but yeah. It's around there. How many Democrats are in this country? 80 million? Is that around there? That's what, roughly 15, 16 million people in this country that wish you would die if you don't take the medication that they want you to have? What do I think of Mastriano for governor and Teddy Daniels for lieutenant? Lieutenant, I don't know much about Teddy. Mastriano, we'll get to in another time. We'll talk a lot about Pennsylvania. Oh, hey, Velociraptor. Right. Again, I said, we take the polls with a grain of salt, but we can see that this is literally matching up with what people say that I've spoken to in real life and that you see people saying online. But I get it, Velociraptor. I get it. Nah, it's all fake. What about the right wing? What about the shit the right wing does? What about them? Oh, they're making shit up. Blah, 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 blah. We get it, Velociraptor. This is always the case for the authoritarian left. Please don't point out how we're so authoritarian. So I just showed you stories of actual laws, actual institutions that are pushing for things like the National Guard, stopping people from going anywhere. We showed you stories of places like Canada that are enforcing things that are insane. We showed you stories of people admitting that governments were using propaganda and militaries were using propaganda. We show you polls showing over 50% of people think you should be on house arrest if you're not vaccinated. And what's some asshole on the left's response to all that? Well, what about the right-wing fault? The right-wing fault, right? What about that? They're the assholes. What about the right-wing fault? What about them? Dishonest Rob at it again. Would you like to call in, Velociraptor? That's all they have on the left. So you get anecdotes that you know crumble. How do they crumble? Show me how they crumble. And can't be supported. So you combine shabby-ass polls that then generalize Dems and pair it to polls to bolster it as true. Would you like to call in? What's your prediction, Velociraptor? So this is all inaccurate. So let's just say How many people, how many Democrats do you think are for vaccine mandates? Velociraptor, go ahead. How many Biden supporters do you think are for vaccine mandates? Why don't you call in? The point is the one-sided coverage. Call out both sides. I am calling out both sides. I'm calling out the side of the authoritarians on all sides. I call out authoritarians when they occur on the right. This is, so what you're going to do, Velociraptor, is you're officially banned from my show. And here's why you're banned, right? I'll bring you back in a week or something like that. But here's why you're going to get banned. The lowest form of intellectual dishonesty that could occur and propaganda that you see is the both sides people. So when we have one side that has almost all institutional power, whether it be culturally through our entertainment industry, corporate America, our media, our social media, tech companies, and we also see politically, they control the House, the Senate, they control the presidency. No, I'm not running. What time do you get off work, Velociraptor? What time do you get off work? What time do you get off work, Velociraptor? You said you'd call in when you get off work. 7. Where are you at? 7. I'm guessing West Coast. Great. I'll still be on. That's 10 on my. You call in. It seems like you're real busy at work there. Why don't you call out both sides? Why don't you call out both sides? Imagine this. Imagine if, like, the episode I'm doing where Trump bombed Syria, and I'm like, Trump bombed Syria, this is fucking ridiculous. This guy sitting there, hey! Wait a minute! Wait a minute! What are you doing criticizing Donald Trump here? What are you doing? Call out both sides! What about both sides? Call out both sides! You gotta call out both sides! Or, you know, when I'm criticizing January 6th, the people that attacked police on January 6th. Rob, wait a minute, what's with this one-sidedness? Why aren't you calling out both sides? Both sides need to be called out. Why are you just calling out the right wing right now? Or when I'm debating J.F. Garriepi or other right-wing race realists. Wait a minute, Rob. Why are you only debating... why are you only talking about the right wing here? What about both sides? Both sides. We need to talk about both sides. That's why on an episode when you're talking about the authoritarianism of the left, why aren't you talking about both sides? You have to talk about both sides, or you're running. You're running if you don't talk about both sides. You have to talk. See, you're a shill. You won't talk about both sides. Right, Timmy Fireball. Good arguments are the ones you say, just say, and the other person says, but do so in a goofy voice. Correct. I'm going to listen to these fucking people, the most authoritarian people, the people whose side rioted over and over and over again, while everyone, like, so many people on their side was like, it's mostly peaceful. I don't see a problem. It's mostly peaceful. I don't see a problem. Who cheered on the intelligence agencies and their coup attempt and their sedition against Donald Trump for 4 years. Then when you start talking, all they want to do is talk about Trump. Trump, 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 Trump. 90% of our mainstream narrative is that. Then when someone like me comes on and wants to talk, and I still criticize the right, and I still criticize Trump, and that it's not enough. I have to devote equal time to both sides, no matter what issue I'm talking about. Yeah, me and Lecture Fan will be fun tomorrow. So we'll just time out Velociraptor. That's all they have. And one of my weaknesses, I allow trolls like that. I respond to them. I should just learn, it's time them out and fucking move on. They have nothing to say. So anyways, back to the point. So I was talking to my friend Tom, who's a Democrat, and even he admitted that, yeah, a huge portion of Democrats want people to die that don't take the treatments that they want. DV654, I find it ironic you'd mute someone on this chat yet complain about not being heard. It's that ironic. Sounds ironic. Thank you so much for the cheer, Mix-a-Lot. To both sides, people. Fantastic. So all of these authoritarian impulses that you see from the left, both sides do it, really. Show me the mandates the right pass that said if you don't do what we like, you're not allowed to go to work. You're not allowed to go grocery shopping. Go ahead, show me. Here we go. This ought to be fun. Check.
Oh, you noticed me, Senpai. How wonderful.
Hey, so everyone, this is American Nightmare 76. He's one of these clout chasers that on the left, he can't get anyone to watch him. So he just stream snipes me every day and says that he's, tries to make fun of me. He's a worthless sack of shit. When he was going to call in one time, but he couldn't figure out how things like Google Voice work. He didn't have a phone. He couldn't figure out Discord. He couldn't figure out Google Voice.
I got a phone.
But he wanted to talk now. So go ahead. What did you want to say, American Nightmare? Check out his channel. It's American Nightmare 76. And what he does is he just stream snipes me and says things like, "You're stupid, you're fat." That's his great discourse. He has one or two people that have watched him in the past. Go ahead, what did you want to say?
Oh, do you want to go over like some of the things I've posted to you in the private chat? Because it's not just calling you fat dumb bitch.
Okay, we'll talk to you later. So I just thought it'd be nice. Now imagine the type of person you have to be that is such a pathetic sack of shit that what you do is constantly watch me and you're basically screaming at yourself. You have one person watching saying, "Look at what he says. I don't like what he's saying. He's out of shape. He has a gray beard. His videos are nice titles like possibly stream sniping Rob Noor tonight. Here was one of the good hits that he had. When I did my 16-hour live stream, this fucking genius looked and saw that the live stream was only 12 hours and was like, Rob lied. His live stream was only 12 hours, not realizing that I paused for a half an hour and then restarted. And actually, my 16-hour live stream was about 17 and a half hours. So, his entire content is just me. That's all it is. So, I thought it'd be fun just to get that off my chest. He was calling me while I was talking there, so I thought it'd be fun. I thought it'd be fun to see what he had to say. You could see that he had... He says, he calls me a worthless fat shit in his little message to me there. So. Poor kid. I think he sounds. I wonder how old he is. It's not, at what point do you start calling someone a poor kid? I'm from around the Pittsburgh area. Oops. World Economic Forum was today. Klaus Schwab, the you'll own nothing and like it guy, he opens it up. What's up, Nerdy Cup? He opens it up, and then it's the first speaker was President Xi from China. Debate Wednesday. Conversation with Lecture Fan tomorrow. Oh, I do want to say one more thing about American Nightmare there. Do you know how excited he just got? Oh, Rob's going to talk to me. Maybe 5 or 6 people will watch my show because the guy that I just streamed tonight, but I can. Oh, he's talking to me. Oh, I'm so excited. No, sorry, bud. So President Xi speaks first. But don't worry, Fauci spoke as well. Isn't that nice? Xi, the president of the country that probably created this in a lab with funding from Dr. Fauci. But even if they didn't, thank you so much, Heavy Fisted, for the cheer. Even if they didn't, they lied about it. They lied about the spread and all this stuff early on. And the premier guy in the United States that tells us how to deal with COVID, he doesn't say, China lied. This could have been created in a lab. He doesn't say any of that shit. He goes on right after Xi. Is that on? How the Biden administration never seems to want to talk about the origins of COVID. Now, Democrats will want to take your kids away or put you in a gulag or have you on house arrest. All that shit. Democrats will want to do all that because you're to blame. You're to blame for COVID. But the country that started it, China, somehow we don't want to focus on that. Isn't that nice? Did you see the part owner of the Golden State Warriors today? There was an interview where a guy was asking about Uyghur Muslims, and he's like, I don't care about the Uyghur Muslims. Yeah, I read chat once in a while. What's up?
Artists of all types of different orientations saying, nah, I want to be like, nah.
By the way, I'm sorry I have to do this. Someone just sent me this. I have to do this. So, I understand that there are shithead people that just want to make insults and they're not very intelligent and that their entire channel and things like that are just going to be talking about me, and it's not worth giving them attention. And trust me, I won't after this. But I do think it's funny. You know that guy just called in and said that I'm a fat fuck? You get that guy? No, man. When it comes to looks, I don't think I'm an overly handsome man or anything like that. Oh, I know. It's not about giving him oxygen. I just thought I'd make one final point. But you would think that someone that's going to make criticisms about how someone looks maybe wouldn't look like this themselves. Holy shit! Oh man! Woo! That is fucking. Hey, now he's got 2 people watching. Holy shit! Woo! Wow! Oh my god, that's fucking awesome. You know, I wasn't expecting Brad Pitt or anything, but oh my god! Holy shit! Wow! Oh man! Thank you so much, Old Gamer Mike, for the subs. Oh, are people subbing just to here? We'll bring the sub over. Oh man! Oh my god, that's fucking hilarious! Oh man! Can I zoom in? How do I zoom in? Let's see. I am a boomer, so let's see. Take a screenshot. There we go. All right. Zoom. Oh, I don't know how to zoom right. Oh, come on, you guys. Whoo. Oh, man. Wow. That is amazing. Is he still going? Where's your smile, buddy? Where's your smile? Oh, shit. He didn't seem to be having such a good time there, did he? Holy shit. Oh, man, I needed a good laugh today. Wow. That's one of the best things I've ever seen. Oh, my God. Holy shit. Oh, man. I had never seen the guy. Yeah, people say, oh, did you see this guy stream snipe you? What the fuck ever, I don't care. More power to him. I hope he gets 1 million viewers. I don't give a shit. You know, but he was always with this fat fuck and blah, blah, blah. Gray beard, hair's falling out and shit like that. And I never saw his image. And oh my God. Someone was like, oh, did you see he's sniping you right now? So I just clicked on the link. And oh shit! The guy called me ugly fat fuck. It's that guy right there. Oh man! Oh my God! Oh shit! Oh, my side is honestly hurting. Oh, man, that is fucking great. Oh, man. I don't know what to say. Yeah. John's like, I thought it was a kid. No. No. Holy cow. Oh, that's too much. Oh, how do we zoom back out? Ooh, goodness gracious. Oops, sorry. Oh, man. Good stuff. Good stuff. Whew. Oh, man. Whew. That's great. Now, you won't see me. You'll be hard-pressed to find me making fun of anyone's appearance. I'm not saying I've never done it, but hard-pressed. And I'm not going to... I'm not gonna say anything specific about that guy. We'll just leave the image speak for itself. Yeah, that's right. It's the irony that's funny. Like, I'm not the type of person that's just, but oh man. Yeah. Oh my God. All right, let me maintain my. Oh man. Thank you guys so much for the hype train. Hey, American Nightmare, if you're still watching, maybe you're right. My content's not that interesting. All I had to do was show an image of you to get hype trained. Oh shit, man. Oh man. Whew. That's gonna be next time I'm stuck on content, man. Bam, just hey, this guy calls me a fat body fuck. Oh man. Oh shit. Oh man. Oh, Colin back. It'd have to be a video chat. You need the visual experience. Oh shit. Oh man. Oh, okay. Oh man. That's beautiful. Well, there you go. Let that be a lesson. Some of the trolls you have out there, don't be worried if you have self-esteem issues from your content or how you look or things like that. There's a chance. The guy making fun of your looks looks like that guy. Here, let's move him back up. That's his stream right now. Oh man, His stream right now. Rob Norris stream snipe. He's lost the plot. Looks like one of us is having fun. Oh man. Whew. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. The guy who for months has been sending me messages and commenting about how unattractive I am. In all of God's glory. The Adonis that we all deserve. Oh man. Hey, I love Last Action Hero. It's good stuff. Oh man. There we go. This could just be the rest of the stream, right? He's stream sniping me. I don't even have to snipe his stream with just this image, right? This is gonna be my new show. I just come on. And read quotes that this guy called me a fat balding fuck. Just that image, the full image. Oh man. Oh man. Hey, come on, don't make fun of Phil Collins. Come on. Oh man. Wow, it's good stuff. Oh man. Oh, he's up to 7 streamers, man. He's doing it. Oh my God. Oh man. Okay. We'll get off of that. Whew. Oh, I sorry. I do have to slide the image back down. Oh, okie dokie. Face cams are optional. Should have been a VTuber. This is nice too. So, in a serious note, here, let's look at his stream right now, right? Here, you see what he's doing? He's showing our private Discord messages is what he's doing. Which is something, it's a bit of a pet peeve of mine, but that's okay. I didn't say anything on there that was super racy or anything like that. But there you go, live streaming our private Discord message too. But there you have it. So, thank you so much, American Nightmare. Needed the laugh. Oh man, I feel great. Whew, I feel good. Feel good. Oh, man. We did it, man. We made it. We're famous. We're famous now. Bye-bye, buddy. Okay. Anyways. Oh, just give me a minute. We'll keep going, I promise. Give me a minute. I can get the giggles out. So, hype training it up. Another hype train. Thank you, guys. I'm sorry I didn't call out everyone who was donating. I was preoccupied. Oh, shit. Oh, my God. Oh, man. It's just... Oh, man. It's just the schadenfreude of it, you know? Again, I'm not saying I'm above making fun of someone's personal image, but it's something that I try to avoid, like, when I'm streaming, like, out of the context of real life, like making fun of friends and stuff like that. You know, it's one of those things that most people can't really control. You look how you look. Obviously, you can get in shape and things like that, but you know, but I mean, if your whole point's just gonna be trolling, you fat fuck. Oh man. Okay. And you look like that. It was more effective before he was using a camera. That's all I'll say. Oh man. Oh, okay. Oh. Seriously, that's tears in my eyes. It's great. It's good stuff. So we won't be giving him any more attention, but I thought that was worth the look. So I had a couple other things to talk about, but we might as well get to the other silly shit I had to talk about. Woo, Discord or Twitch streamers. Twitch streamers, baby. It's a prestigious, Twitch streaming, man. Let me tell you, it's where it's at. Sometimes Twitch streamers, particularly those on the left, they get together and they have little powwows and at little events and shit like that. I guess there was one in Texas. Let's see some of the great debate that's going on. You ready? Left-wing Twitch debate. Ready? In real life. Here we go.
And the independence movement of Taiwan has never been popular. It's always been a marginal phenomena. A phenomena we can infer was definitely propped up by the Americans. Chiang Kai-shek himself had to butt heads.
A few moments.
Keep talking about it. You look like a fat fuck. You look like an inbred fat. Inbred fat. You look like an inbred fat. Let's continue. So Dylan kept asking, what? You look like an inbred fat retard. And the independence movement of Taiwan.
Someone called in and did some meme called Ram Ranch to me, and Dylan posted, "Let's see what the best right-wing Twitch has to offer." There we have left-wing Twitch for you. There we have it. Impressive, right? But all joking aside, I want to show something. I want to show something I think is very important here. You ready? All joking aside, what do you notice about this picture? Anything? You notice anything? Someone tell me what the first thing you notice about this picture is. I don't see sunlight. Oh no. It looks like they're indoors, doesn't it? Is that 6 feet distance? Where's the mask? Where are the masks? What? No masks. Only one's talking at a time. Right? When one's talking, at least the other they could talk with a mask on. But certainly if you say, well, impedes how I speak, okay, we'll give you that. Then you wear the mask until it's time to talk, then pull it down. Right? Right? Wasn't my initial conversation with Dylan and about how he's choosing to ignore CDC guidelines and his mayor's guidelines by going out in large events, large crowds? He said that was okay because I wear a mask. And then he was insulting like gym owners and stuff that didn't force people to wear masks indoors. What happened? Why no mask? That seems ridiculous. Why intentionally put yourself? Couldn't he have zoomed in? Right? Why did you have to go in person? Why'd you have to sit closer than 6 feet to someone? Why not wear a mask? I just thought it was interesting. Strange. We insult people that don't wear masks and want to work out. We insult them. Even though World Health Organization guidelines said not to wear a mask while you're exercising. Dylan said that's ridiculous. But here he is. So for those that don't know, apparently what that clip's showing, it's just a little clip, Dylan challenged Hawes to a boxing match. And Hawes accepted under the pretenses that both were complete amateurs. But then when he found out Dylan had experience in boxing, he was like, well, I feel like you misled me. I don't give a shit. It's just like, look, if you're boxing for charity or something like that, fine, that's one thing. But it's so funny because, to be honest, all the fucking grandstanding about how progressive and shit all these people are, the reality is Twitch politics, even fucking me, is a shitty, bad high school drama fest. That's what the fuck it is. That's the reality. Period. That's what's going on. I just spent 15 minutes laughing at some poor fuck that was calling me a fat bastard. I mean, that's the reality of it. I do it because I have fun. But for all these people, you know, all these progressive streamers like bullying stupid, and like, you know, toxic masculinity, and it's just stupid, and like physical nature, you know, people, all this toxic masculine macho culture, and like these athletes and these dumb jocks and shit like that. I forgot to turn my hat. Like all the toxic masculinity and the patriarchy. It's just fucking stupid. It's so ridiculous. We're so progressive. Oh, by the way, my favorite streamer could beat the shit out of yours. He beat the shit out of yours. My dad could kick your dad's ass. But toxic masculinity, stupid. My dad would kick your dad's ass while he's telling him to call him the correct pronouns. That's how it will. That's how tough my dad is. Fucking great. Fun. That's the reality. Let me tell you another reality. So there's polling out that shows during the first quarter, nationally, according to a Gallup poll, Democrats had an 11-point lead over registered voters, or people that identified as Democrat than Republican. Now, that number has been a 15-point swing to where Republicans 4 points higher than Democrats nationally. 15-point swing. You want to know what the reality is? Despite the fact that I'm not even trying and I don't give a shit, in fact, I find myself to be somewhat contrarian. I kind of hate authoritarianism. So I usually fall on the side of challenging authority wherever it's coming from. When I was young, the authority seemed to be coming from the right. You know, all these people trying to censor music and censor video games. Most of it was like people on the right. Christian lawyers like Jack Thompson, shit like that. I didn't like that. I don't like authoritarianism. I challenge it. Right now, almost every institution is controlled by the Democrats or the left. That's where the authoritarian's coming from. That's where I find myself pushing back. I'm for free speech. Shit like that. Right now, the side that's saying take away free speech is predominantly the left. That's saying we need to control who we platform. We need people off the platforms. Blah, 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 blah. That's where it's coming from. If the pendulum swings too far back the other way, and we start to see the right controlling everything and saying, we don't think that people that disagree with us should be allowed to be in the public voice, I'll say, fuck that. Wrong. But despite all that, you want to know what the irony of all this is? My point of view is more common than those left-wing Twitch streamers. That's the reality. It's more common than the way the Democratic Party's going right now. I'm not far right. I argue with people on the far right. Socially, I have a lot of beliefs that are probably considered traditionally left-wing. I think the war on drugs is shit. I think the state of our prisons is deplorable. I don't think that we should deport every illegal American. I'm for gay marriage. Most people aren't extreme. And although I might be bombastic and opinionated and passionate, the reality is my beliefs are far more mainstream than many of the psychopaths that you see that are running the Democratic Party and that are involved in the Twitch politics stream and shit like that. They don't want children being taught that your race is based on your skin color. They don't want children being locked out of schools. They don't want people to lose their kids because they're not vaccinated. They want parents to have a say in their education of their children. They don't think the United States is evil and a horrible country. Because you can't deport up to 30-something million illegals. It's just not going to happen. It's not feasible. I'm not saying they should be citizens, but it's not feasible. Yeah, most people just want to be left the fuck alone. That's exactly right. But we lose sight of it because these institutions put push this extreme narrative. And they push content creators that are doing it. And our culture pushes it. And so young people think it's hip and cool. Remember punk? I was talking about this the other day. Remember punks? I did a YouTube video. Check it out. 15 minutes. I streamed the other day in the car, and I was talking about Ethan Klein. Remember H3H3? To me, he's like a less funny Howard Stern, right? Now, he had a successful channel. He still has a channel far more successful than mine ever will be. Fine, great. That's his own prerogative. I don't care. But the idea that he's someone who started off with comedy and now he's become woke, and a lot of the shit he said in the past, N-words or gay slurs and things like that, he's given a pass because, well, he's sufficiently woke now. Just like Howard Stern was. Howard Stern was as anti-woke as you could get. He exploited women for sex acts. Like, I wasn't even a huge fan. But even if you just watch his movie, Private Parts, like, it shows some of the stuff he did. He'd have women call in and basically perform sex acts audibly so that his audience could hear. He arguably exploited handicapped people. He wore blackface, said all kinds of slurs that we could say. He did all this shit. And yet he's not held responsible. Now he's one of the voices of the Democratic Party, the left, bitching. He says Djokovic should be out of tennis forever. And vaccine this and vaccine that. He's woke now. Not funny now. Hasn't been funny for a long time, but he's woke. And so he gets a pass. H3H3, right? It's funny. The only thing I ever saw from that show was there was this clip of this guy, and it's like this feminist lady, she's screaming about something, she's filming it, and she's like, what's your name? And he's like, Hugh, and she's like, Hugh what? And he's like, humongous, kind of like a dick joke. And she freaks out on him, and, you know, people were trying to cost this guy's job and stuff, and Ethan reached out to this guy and brought him on the show, and, like, talked to him, and, you know, helped this dude out. What would Ethan do now? Well, that's toxic masculinity. That's so toxic. And if you missed it, Ethan, you know, in addition to going after Joe Rogan, probably for clicks, then he said, I interviewed Jordan Peterson, and he seemed like a decent guy, and we just talked about philosophy. But now that I know he's a gateway to the alt-right, I've removed my interview from him. You know? So it's just funny. You know, the counterculture, young people have always been kind of involved in counterculture. There is no counterculture now. Young people think it's hip and cool to do the things that Starbucks tells them to do. And that their favorite musician, who has all their music written by producers that work for Sony and all these other multinational corporations, that's what's hip and cool. Yeah, they all agree. They happen to agree with the state. They all agree with the Democrats and the Biden administration. And most of the Republicans in power, too. Yay, that's what's hip and cool. Rage for the machine. Yay! We're hip and cool. We're counterculture. We're leading a revolution. Man, this whole country is systemically racist. We're tired of these institutions being racist, so we're leading a revolution to challenge it. And the way we're going to do it is we're going to go after poor Trump supporters, and we're going to go into poor black neighborhoods, and that's where we're going to take out our aggression. And we're going to be sponsored by Nike, and we're going to be sponsored by Starbucks, and all the major corporations that are going to emblazon our logo over everything. It's going to be awesome, man. It's going to be lit. And all the musicians that are invited to the White House, they're going to agree with us, and the White House is going to agree with us, and the Democratic Party. We're so counterculture. We're so hip and cool. That's who these fucking people. That's what Twitch. That's what most of left-wing Twitch is. It's where many of these millennials come from. Not all. I'm a millennial technically. I think I'm 37. They indoctrinated young people. They controlled the culture. This is what you get. I saw a meme. It was like one of those He-Man memes where he's talking. It said, remember, punks are good kids. Punks are good people pretending to be bad. And hippies are bad people pretending to be good. Excuse me. Yep. So it seems like when you go on Twitch politics, like, biggest right-wing streamer, you know, It's going to have maybe 1,000. Like Tori says, we'll have like 1,000 people watching. You know, me, CTV or me or Lecture Fan, 50 to 100. Big's Bullets on, she's got 84 people watching. And then left-wing people that are basically in our kind of reach, they're getting 600, 700. Left-wing streamers like Hassan, tens of thousands. Tori's rocking 3K, good for her. And Twitter seems like Vosh is trending on Twitter every other day, and Twitter seems like, you know, and Facebook and YouTube, you know, algorithm pushes people on the left, censors people on the right. We'll just straight up ban you if you say certain things about COVID we don't like or certain things about the election we don't like. We'll just ban you. And it gives the impression that this is the main, this is what this country is, but it's not that. Most people are far more centrist than that. I might have ideas like disband the FBI. I'll say it unabashedly. Not a popular opinion. Most people probably won't have it. We should do it, but most people won't have it. But I'm just saying. That's the reality. All these high-minded people on Twitch, left-wing political streamers are going to change the world. We're going to get together and we're going to do this. And what are they talking about when they get there? What about a boxing match? You say I'm overweight. Oh, I'll show you. Oh, that's it. So I just thought that was funny. No mask, though. Shame on you, Dylan. Shame. Shame, shame, shame. It's okay for him. You're the bad person if you don't do it. It's important that he be allowed to protest. It's important that he be allowed to go to events that he wants. It's not important that you could visit your grandma in the nursing home or that you could go provide for your family. That's not important. Because you're horrible. They're better than you. It's okay for them to violate the rules. It's okay. Perfectly fine. Now, given what we talked about, I have a lot of friends that are left-wing. Can you be friends with someone who thinks that your child should be taken away from you if you're not vaccinated? How long is that friendship going to be maintained? Be friends with someone who thinks that you should be put in a temporary facility if you're not vaccinated? Can you be friends with someone who thinks they're going to make fun of you if you die of COVID and you weren't vaccinated? I could be friends with someone that says we should have Medicare for all. I could be friends with someone that says, I think we should be socialist. I could be friends with someone that says, I think that we should give the Dreamers amnesty. Hell, I could even be friends with someone that says, I think we should impeach Donald Trump. I might disagree with all those positions. But that's okay. I could separate it. But I don't know how I separate someone wishing me ill will if I make medical decisions that they don't approve of. How do I do that? And I'm saying this as someone who has a lot of left-wing friends. I don't see a lot of them very much anymore. Well, yeah, that's different hope talk. You won't hear me wishing ill will on people. I never do. Not once. I've been consistent. Even streamers that I don't particularly like, I say, I hope their channel grows and thrives. I don't care. But yeah, being friends is different. And the reality is, it's not fringe beliefs, a lot of this shit we're talking about. I've said this for a long time. I've said, remember when, like, Pelosi was feuding with AOC? You remember that, like, a year ago, before the COVID shit, right? You would hear about these little spats, Pelosi, or, you know, AOC would come out. And what I told people all the time, I was like, there's a difference, right? There's AOC, there's the squad, there's Bernie, right? And then there's sort of the corporatist Dems, right? Now, the squad and Bernie, they believe in their socialism. They do. Now, they're hypocrites. They don't live. The entire point of it is they're exempt from the utopia that they seek to force on you. They could fly first class and have private jets and have third lake houses and not take public transportation and all that shit. They could bitch at you that you should be locked in your home, but they'll go to Florida and be hanging out at drag queen festivals. Shit like that. That's who they are. They'll take every tax break they could get while criticizing that, they'll say millionaires are immoral until they're a millionaire, and then they'll say billionaires are immoral. And then if they ever become billionaires, they'll say it's trillionaires that are the real problem. But they believe it. If Bernie became president, he would advocate for a tax bracket that would fuck over Jeff Bezos. He would. It'd still be more power for him, but he'd screw over even corporate Democrat donors like Bezos. He would. Now, Pelosi ain't going to do that. That wing, they're not going to do that. They're going to make sure their donors, even if their tax rate goes up, that it's still going to result in more power and more money for their corporate donors. That's what the corporatist wing of the Democratic Party is going to do. But they do like socialism, not the economic reality. They agree that, oh yeah, they'll go along with the idea of socialism. What they like about it is the authoritarianism. Because socialism implies more government power. And they're in charge of government. So they say, yes, we want more power for us. And all this shit about caring about workers and poor, that's all bullshit. They don't really care. AOC and Bernie might. Again, they're hypocrites. But they might care about that. The other Dems are just going along with it because they realize that it's an avenue to get more power for themselves. And then when they have that power, well, see for yourself what happened during the lockdown/stimulus that was largely pushed by the Democrats. One of the largest transfers of wealth in history from the poor and working class to the upper class. That's the reality. More power for the government led to poor people being fucked over more and the wealthy getting richer. That's the reality. But they like that. And then what do they say? Oh, well, we need more socialism, more power for the government. More government intervention. That's the answer, which will result in more transfer of wealth, more power for the elite, for the donors to the Democratic Party, and more screwing over poor people. And then they'll say, oh, that's a shame. You know what? We need more government power, which will result in more transfer of wealth and power. That's the reality. So largely, what Nancy Pelosi and her wing wants is the same as what AOC and her wing wants, and Bernie. The end game's different, but Bernie and AOC are too fucking stupid to figure that out. They say they are socialists, therefore they are socialist, and we will align with them. Bernie had his chance to go after the Democratic Party when it screwed him over in 2016. He chose not to. Instead, he chose to bend the knee. Same shit we see with AOC. They talk a big game, but boy, they like that money. They like that lifestyle. A modest third house, says Bernie Sanders. Selling out's just too tempting. So when Pelosi's yelling at AOC and they're kind of spatting, Pelosi's not yelling, like, for example, about the Green New Deal and, all the shit that has nothing to do with energy or the environment that they're going to do. We need people of color on boards, and we're going to do, give people, remember the original Green New Deal draft said we'll pay people, even those unwilling to work. Remember that? Like, Pelosi's like, shh. Now the shh wasn't, we don't like those policies. The shh was, don't give up the fucking game. We're pretending to be moderate. Shh. Don't tell them what we're up to. Because Pelosi's politically smart. She knows that the Democrat agenda from the people running that party is so fucking radical that the average person isn't going to accept it. So they lie. She's not mad that AOC's pushing radical policies. She's mad that AOC's telling the truth. That's why she's mad. Let me show you an example of something similar to that. This is from yesterday. This is the official account of the Michigan Democratic Party. Not sure where this parents should control what is taught in schools because they are our kids is originating, but parents do have the option to choose to send their kids to a hand-selected private school at their own expense if this is what they desire. The purpose of public education in public schools is not to teach kids only what parents want them to be taught. It is to teach them what society needs them to know. The client of public schools is not the parent, but the entire community, the public. It's not what parents want their kids to be taught, it's what society wants them to. And when they say the word society, they don't mean me and you. That ain't who they're talking about. They're talking about them. They're talking about we should be able to control what your children are taught. You remember when I debated Jangles on CRT? And one of the things I talked about was the founders of critical race theory talked about praxis. And they talked about the need to create, what was the word they used? It wasn't, they said revolutionaries at point, but to create activists. That was the purpose of education. To create activists. And I said, that's not the purpose of education. It's to teach things, teach kids the basic things they need to have a career, to have success in the world, to become productive members of society. It is not to create activists. And Jangles said, what's the problem with creating activists? And I said, because it's political. We're not teaching kids math and writing. We're teaching them to advocate for causes, to be political activists. Well, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? I said, let me ask you this. One of these school districts, Iowa, said that one of the things that was racist that they were teaching their kids about was the phrase, make America great again. And he said, yes, absolutely. Yeah, it definitely is. We should be teaching kids that. And I said, do you think it is our schools, K through 12's job, to teach our children to be activists against Donald Trump and his supporters because they're racist? And he said, absolutely. That's how they really think. That's what they think. Now, they couch it in words that seem benign. Oh, no, we just want activists. We just want to teach them what's best for society. And you're like, well, who decides that? Well, it's society in general. Well, what are some of the things that you think that as society that are worth teaching them? Well, that, all white people benefit from privilege, and the country was founded on racism, and racism is systemic in every institution, and, Donald Trump was racist, and Make America Against Racist, and a border wall is racist, and blah, blah. You see, it sounds so reasonable at first, until you get into the details of what that means. It's just like this. Well, I think that we should keep disinformation off the internet. Oh, okay, well, who gets to decide what's disinformation? Us. Anything that we decide. Sounds reasonable. Sure, disinformation's bad. Maybe we should keep it off the internet. Right, and everything we say is wrong's wrong. Starting to sound a little authoritarian there? So anyways, that's the official, again, not making this up from yesterday. That's the official Michigan Democratic Party. It's not parents that should be in charge of their kids' education. It's society. And by society, they mean them and their activist friends. They get to indoctrinate your children. That's what they mean. So then they're called out on it. And people are like, you see? They didn't learn shit from Virginia, did they? We didn't learn shit from that, right? How'd that work in Virginia? Youngkin, who basically wasn't even on the chart, ends up winning largely because of school lockdowns and because of this shit. Because his opponents out there talking about parents don't have the right to decide. Parents disagreed, even Democrat ones. So what's the Michigan Democratic Party tweet out today? We've deleted a post that ignored the important role parents play, and should play, in Michigan public schools. Parents need to have a say in their children's education. End of story. The post does not reflect the views of the Michigan Democrats, and should not be misinterpreted as a statement of support from our elected officials and candidates. Or, if you allow me to translate, as I did in this tweet, sorry we told the truth about how we don't want parents involved in the education programs we use to indoctrinate their children. Please vote for us in 2022. You think they changed their mind in 24 hours? You think that's what happened? Oh shit, we realized the error of our ways. You think that's what happened? You think the Michigan Democratic Party was like, oh, you know what? We've reflected on this for 24 hours. And now we've gone from parents don't have a say in their children's education. If you want to have a say, go to a private school too. Of course parents have a role. You think that's what happened? Or do you think it was, oh fuck, we accidentally told people what we really believe, and they don't like it. Whoops! Election's coming up. Better keep it under our hat. Trust us, parents. You'll have a say when we're elected. Just like what I was saying with Pelosi and AOC. Shh! Don't tell the people how radical we really are. Shh! Until we can. I go back to this. Just because I like Jordan Peterson. And I think this sums it up. And I have to go to the bathroom, so.
Yes, I just...
You see, they're just waiting. They've been this radical for long. They want to wipe out the working class. They do. They want total control of you. Sure, they'll let you live. They want you reliant on the government. They don't want people that are self-sufficient. They want you reliant on them. You'll own nothing and like it. That's what they want. They want a globalist system. A new serfdom. Neo-feudalism. Where there are peasants and there are the ruling class. They want controlled population. They don't want middle class. Middle class is hard to control. They want people that, we don't own anything. We rely on the government for our food. We rely on the government for our shelter. And they'll give it to you. And they'll give you bread. And they'll give you circuses. And they'll give you the new, what the hell's the new Facebook thing called? Right? They'll give you a virtual world. As long as you worship them. Just like the kings of yesteryear. You get to live in the little surf around the castle. As long as you support the king. Otherwise, you're shut off. We'll take your kids. We'll put you in the gulag. We'll arrest you. We'll fine you. We'll just stop sending you food. We'll take away your ability to bank. We'll take away your ability to have a presence on the online sphere, which is where almost all conversation occurs now. Some places are moving in different directions faster than others. In Canada, if your biological male child, who's 8 years old, says, I'm a female, you can't say, no, you're not. You can't say that. The government has the right to decide. Not you. They get to teach your kids, not you. You can't go to church, but you can go to the liquor store. I'm not even overly religious, but there's a reason that was one of the first things they did, stop people from going to church. Here's the Peterson, right? So what they're doing is, the Michigan Democratic Party there, what they realized is, they went too far. Ooh, we told the truth about what we want a little too much. Now they'll walk it back. And they'll push and push and push and push and push and push. But oh, too far. Then walk it back a little. And then push and push and push and push and push. Oh, too far. Walk it back a little. And then push and push and push and push and push. Oh, too far and walk it back. And the next thing you know, you're way over here. And you're like, how did I get here? So that's all it was. They pushed. They went a little over the line. They go back. They haven't changed how radical they are. They're just like, oh, not ready for that quite yet. Don't worry. Another year or so, propaganda, calling our opponents racist, saying they're domestic terrorists, all this shit. We'll get where we're going. Don't worry.
I don't understand how it gets to the point where...
things get to terrible places one tiny step at a time. You know, if I encroach on you and I'm sophisticated about it, I'm going to encroach 2 millimeters. I'm going to encroach right to the point where you start to protest. Then I'm going to stop. Then I'm going to wait. Then you're going to calm down. Then I'm going to encroach again right to the point where you protest. Then I'm going to stop. Then I'm going to wait. And I'm just going to do that forever. And before you know it, you're going to be back 3 miles from where you started, and you'll have done it one step at a time. And then you'll go, oh, how'd I get here? And the answer was, well, I pushed you a little farther than you should have gone, and you agreed. And so then I pushed you a little farther than you should have gone again, and you agreed. And if anybody's interested in this sort of process, and this is a horrifying book, if you want to read about how this process works, you can read a book called Ordinary Men by Robert Browning. And Ordinary Men is about, Browning was interested in how the Nazis trained how they trained people to kill, basically. And so Robert Browning studied this police battalion. It's a very interesting book. So these were middle-aged German men. So they were raised and educated really before Hitler came to power. So they weren't indoctrinated Nazis. They were policemen. And when the Nazis went through Poland and then needed to impose their brand of order on Poland, they brought policemen in. They brought this battalion of middle-aged policemen in. And their commandant, their commander, was by all accounts a pretty decent guy. And he told them that because it was wartime, they were probably going to have to do some pretty terrible things, but that they could go home if they didn't think they were up to it. So there was no compulsion. This wasn't a Milgram experiment or an experiment where you had to obey orders. The guy who was giving the orders said, look, this is going to be awful, but you can back off. But the guys thought, well, I'm not going to leave my comrades here to do the dirty work, which is kind of a virtue in a perverse way. And then Browning details how they went from ordinary policemen to guys who were taking naked pregnant women out into the middle of fields and shooting them in the back of the head. And they were physically ill during most of the transformation process. They started out by rounding up the Jewish men between the ages of 16 and 65. Well, you can kind of understand that because you're at war. And then they put them in stadiums. And then they had to shoot some of them. And then they had to load them on cattle cars. It was like one step at a time. These guys were having a dreadful time of it. They didn't stop. And so that's how things get to where they are now, is that, I know they're not at that point, and I'm not trying to make the case that they're at that point.
Well, you're one of the first people that's sounding an alarm, that there's a real issue with controlling people. There's a real issue with controlling dialogue.
And again, we won't play the rest of it, but that was from October 2nd, 2020. That's just when this was put up. It was before that. That was one step at a time. We went from 15 days to slow the spread to, well, the vaccine doesn't prevent transmission, but you ought to be forced to take it if you want to get groceries. Maybe we'll put you on house arrest if you choose not to. And 1/3 of us think that we should take your children away if you don't get vaccinated, even though it doesn't prevent the spread and your child's basically not at risk from it anyways. That's where we're at. It took fucking 2 years to get there. If I'd have told you 3 years ago, that a huge portion of Democrats will advocate that you shouldn't be allowed to grocery shop unless you take a new medication from the pharmaceutical companies. They'd be like, are you fucking kidding me? No way. Alex Jones, tinfoil hat wearer. I tweeted this out. If you guys follow me on Twitter, I don't use it. I do a lot of retweeting. But let's get what's the official story from the Democrats on Russia today? Anyone? Official story. Let's see if I can sum it up here in my tweet. Ready? Democrat position on Russia is currently, Russia is horrible. They controlled Trump. And they're trying to invade the Ukraine, and we may have to send military forces to fight them, to stop them. That's how bad Russia is. But Democrats also think that they have to use a Jim Crow relic filibuster majority to stop the sanctions of a Russian climate change-inducing pipeline. Did I get that right? Right? How's this shit always happening? And it's not just the Democrats, though it's majoritarily the Democrats, but it's an establishment thing. They always put us in these fucked up, backward situations that make no sense. Like, for example, We have to send weapons and munitions to our allies in Syria that are allied with Al-Qaeda and Al-Nusra and some ISIS factions. But back home, those factions are so devastating that you can't go through the airport without being molested. We have to have a Patriot Act to take away your Fourth Amendment rights. Because Islamic terrorism is so bad. But we work with them sometimes. But they're so bad that we have to take away. You see how that works? Same thing in Libya. Sometimes we work with them, but they're the most dangerous people ever, so we have to take your rights away. You get it? See how that works? Here's one for you. The Biden administration, anyone remember this? We talked the other day, we did a show talking about Biden scandals that we don't talk about anymore. Remember when Biden bombed Syria? Anyone remember this? Joe Biden bombed Syria, remember? Does anyone remember why Joe Biden bombed Syria? What was the official explanation of why Biden needed to bomb Syria? Or the Biden, it's not Biden. Biden was eating pudding in the basement. But the people running. On the lunch button. I'll be shocked if anyone remembers what the official explanation was. They attacked troops in Iraq, but that's half of it. Was it Syria that attacked troops in Iraq? Wasn't, right? He attacked Syria, but no, it wasn't Syria. He attacked, you'd be excused for believing so. Right, it was Iran. Iranians attacked U.S. interests in Iraq. So we bombed Syria. Got it? Makes sense to you? Because the Biden administration said the Iranian-backed terrorists were in Syria. That would be like this. If Mexico got attacked by Chinese militants that were stationed in Texas, and so Mexico bombed Texas, you think the United States would say, fair enough, there were Chinese there. Yeah. You think that's what the United States would say? Sound reasonable? Oh, you violated our sovereignty by bombing our country because terrorists from another country were here? That was the explanation. That's the official explanation of why the Biden administration, like 1 month in, bombed Syria. Now, as stupid as that is, think about this for a second. On one hand, Iran is so fucking dangerous that they are using basically terrorists, Iran-financed people, to kill Americans and American interest in Iraq. That's how fucking horrible the government of Iran is. So bad that we have to bomb another country just to try to get these dastardly Iranians. Got that? But we need to re-enter the deal with them. We should send them a bunch of money and shit again. Got that? On one hand, they're so horrible, we have to bomb Syria to get Iran. But on the other hand, let's get back into the Iran deal and send them a bunch of money and shit. Got it? Make sense? Oil is bad. Natural gas is bad. Pipelines are bad. They're bad for the environment. They lead to climate change. We only have 10 years. We only have 10 years. We only have 10 years to save the earth. We're all going to be dead because of climate change. It's happening. It's going to happen. We need to shut down pipelines in the United States. We need to shut down pipelines around the world. It's so bad for climate change. It's just horrible. And while we're at it, let's get rid of the filibuster. It's racist. It's a Jim Crow relic. It's a Jim Crow relic. And we're tired of it. We're tired of the filibuster. It's racist. It's from the Jim Crow era. It's racist. We need to get rid of pipelines. We need to get rid of the filibuster. And those fucking Russians, they're monkeying around in the Ukraine. We may have to send troops. We may have to send weapons. And we know that they were controlling the Trump campaign. We need more investigations to see what Putin's up to. We need more. We hate Russia. We hate pipelines. We hate the filibuster. Oh, okay. Well, Republicans are offering to sanction a Russian pipeline. So, yeah, we're going to have to use a filibuster because we don't want Russia sanctioned and that pipeline to be sanctioned. Sorry. But we hate Russia, and we hate pipelines, and we hate the filibuster. The filibuster's racist. Pipelines will cause climate change. We're all dead in 10 years. And Russians, they infiltrated our country. But we're gonna filibuster that sanction of a Russian pipeline. We're gonna do that. I thought the filibuster isn't that racist? No, it's not racist when we do it. It's racist when you do it. In fact, we should get rid of the filibuster for Republicans, for anyone who's not Democrats. It's only racist when they use it. We should be allowed to use the filibuster, but no one else should be allowed to use it. It's Jim Crow. It's Jim Crow when you use it. Not with us. Not with us. With us, it's not Jim Crow. When we used it 327 times during the Trump administration, it wasn't Jim Crow. It's Jim Crow when you use it. Yeah, you're Jim Crow. It's MLKD. You're Jim Crow. You're racist. And pipelines are good when we like them. And Russia's good when we don't want to sanction them. But you're Jim Crow. You're Jim Crow. You're Jim Crow. Right. Shut down U.S. pipelines, but we have more strict control over them, and encourage pipelines in places like Russia. Oh, by the way, policies like that will result in us importing more fossil fuels from places where the energy is dirtier and make us more reliant on the very countries that they claim are evil that we need to be going against. You know. Of course, we could push nuclear energy, but half the fucking leftists don't like it either. All right. Here's Mayor Adams in New York. Having a great time with 20,000 of his maskless friends at the Knicks game. Tomorrow he'll force 3-year-olds to mask for speech therapy and kindergartners to mask for recess outdoors. Adult recreation taking precedence over children's developmental needs. Just listen to these people speak. Listen to these woke people speak. When you just let them go. You remember when Alyssa Milano came out and was like, well, if we deported illegal immigrants, who would clean our toilets? Who would mow our yards? Just listen to them speak. Honestly. They can't help themselves. Their bigotry comes out. Their contempt, their hatred. Listen to this. Listen to this from, I don't know what this is from, The View or some shit like it. You ready? Listen to this woke speech. Ready?
My grandmother taught me about self-pleasuring because she wanted me to know that that pleasure was from me.
Exactly.
She didn't want me to fall into the hands of a man, and if he gave me pleasure, to think that that was him. Yeah. And she taught me at 9. My grandmother taught me about self-pleasuring because she wanted me to know that that pleasure was from me.
Exactly.
She didn't want me to fall into the hands of a man, and if he gave me pleasure, to think that that was him.
Right.
And she taught me at 9.
9! Get it? Just let him talk. Parents don't have the right. What say do they have in their children's education? Oh, what's that? Oh, people aren't going to vote for us because they think that's fucked up. Oh, sorry, we didn't mean that. It was misinterpreted. Cool, 9-year-olds. One second. This is a partial owner of the Golden State Warriors. Let's hear what he has to say about allegedly China having basically concentration camps for Uyghur Muslims. Ready? And begin.
Nobody cares about. Nobody cares about what's happening to the Uyghurs. Okay, you bring it up because you really care, and I think that's nice that you care. The rest of us don't care. I'm just telling you a very hard.
Wait, you're saying you personally don't care?
I'm telling you a very hard, ugly truth. Okay, of all the things that I care about, yes, it is below my line. Okay, of all the things that I care about, it is below my line.
No, the reality is he's right. Absolutely true. That's a true statement. He is right. He doesn't care. And basically no one cares. That's true. Very few people care. He's right. I don't even have a problem with him saying that. You know what I have a problem with? That the fucking NBA couldn't wait to criticize this country for how fucking racist it is while making billions upon billions of dollars in China. That's what I care about. If you're gonna fucking get into the, we care about you, this country, the United States is so terrible and blah, 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 blah. Well, one of your largest business partners is China and you're like, we don't give a fuck what they do. Then shut the fuck up. Caring about the Uyghur Muslims. China, what China's doing to the Uyghur Muslims. So Golden State's organization came out and they had to get ahead of this scandal, right? As a limited investor who has no day-to-day operating functions with the Warriors, Mr. whatever his name is does not speak on behalf of our franchise, and his views certainly don't reflect those of our organization. Oh, really? Then what are the views of your organization, if you don't mind us asking? Steve Kerr couldn't wait to jump in about George Floyd, or about the Second Amendment, or about Donald Trump. He's the coach of the Warriors. Let's hear what he has to say about the Uyghur Muslims. Shall we? Yeah, Enes Kanter. This is why, and it's being brought up because Enes Kanter, who's an NBA, this isn't happening in a vacuum, right? So, like, when I debated in college, you have these ridiculous arguments that would be like, I would call them like sins of omission, right? So let's say the topic was U.S. federal government should reduce subsidies in one of the following areas. And so our plan, we'd stand up and we'd be like, we're going to reduce 50% of corn subsidies. We think that it'll help corn production in foreign countries, which will be good for their economy and the world economy. And it will allow our farmland to be opened up for hybrid fuels, right? Something like that. And that'd be a plan in debate. And the negative team would say, you didn't talk about the U.S. government having slaves. You didn't talk about that. U.S. government's racist. It's built in the back of slavery. And you'd be like, okay, so you'd have that debate. You should lose because you didn't talk about slavery. So you'd be like, all right, fine. We should get rid of subsidies. And oh, by the way, the U.S. government is racist. And they'd say, yeah, but you didn't talk about how the Trail of Tears and what they did to Indians. You didn't talk about that. And you'd be like, okay, U.S. government's racist against black people and slavery is horrible, and the Trail of Tears was horrible, and we should get rid of subsidies. And they say, yeah, but you didn't talk about violence against women and the patriarchy in the United States. And you'd be like, okay, the United States federal government is terrible, and there's a lot of violence against women, and it's terrible that it had slavery, and it's terrible what they did to the Indians, and also we should get rid of subsidy. And they'd be like, yeah, but you didn't talk about how they exploit animals in factory farms. And that was it. And the link was, you use the government, and the government's bad, so therefore, and it's bad because of animals. And you'd be like, it's not mutually exclusive. Like, sure, the government's done bad shit. We're talking about right now, should we end subsidies? Are you saying that we should end the U.S. government? No, that's not what we're saying. We're just saying that you need to comment on this, right? So no one's saying that. No one's saying to the NBA like, oh, by the way, there's, what do you think about child genocide in Zimbabwe? What do you think about that? That's not what's happening. It's not just totally in a vacuum like, this is happening because the NBA has an incredibly lucrative deal with China. Billions upon billions, million and billionaires making billions more off of shoe companies that are based in China that are using child labor and other bad labor practices. And the Chinese government is basically telling them, you can't criticize us or we won't show your gains. And we'll end our financial relationship with you. Okay, fair enough. It's about making money, fine. We ain't talking politics. But simultaneously, the League has stated as part of its agenda to become socially active and become political when it comes to the United States. So you criticize the shit out of the United States. You call it racist. You call Trump racist. You attack people that defend guns. Yada, whatever you want. You say all that shit. But China says you can't say that about us. And so then you have this guy, Enos Kanter, who comes out and he's like, free Taiwan. How fucking dare the NBA basically try to silence people that said free Taiwan. This is bullshit. I'm not going to bow down to the Chinese government. Not doing it. I'm going to say what I want. What's happening to these Uyghur Muslims is terrible. What's happening to the protests that we saw in like Hong Kong and stuff like that was terrible. That's the context that this is happening in. They fucking opened it up. If I come on virtue signaling every day and I say things like this, I say, you know, God, my representative's an adulterer. You know, he cheated on his wife. My representative cheated on his wife. And every day I'm on here. This is disgusting. He needs to be removed from office, blah, blah, blah. And then you're like, Rob, didn't you volunteer for the Trump campaign? It's pretty obvious he cheated on Melania, right? And I'm like, oh, I don't know anything. I don't want to talk about that. But anyways, back to the adultery of my local representative here. You'd be like, okay, shut the fuck up then. You're not serious. It's easy to be an activist when you have nothing on the line. In fact, not only do you have nothing on the line, it benefits you. You think the NBA is losing money because they're criticizing Donald Trump and Trump supporters? Or even if they lose money on it, you think they're losing clout? All the right people love them for it. And listen, there was this old Bill Hicks skit about Willie Nelson. Willie Nelson got in some tax trouble there in the 90s, and Bill Hicks is talking about how pissed off he is to watch, like, people that he respected entertainment-wise shill products, like sell out to advertisers. And he's talking about Jay Leno, you know, selling out to NBC, because Leno, if it's kind of a comedy thing. Leno was a really funny stand-up comic, and then he kind of became a corporate man for NBC, and Bill Hicks has this hilarious bit where he's like, hey, I'm talking to Joey Lawrence here. Hey, Joey, what's happening? He's like, yo, what's happening? You know, how you doing, Jay? You know, yeah, thanks for being here. Yeah. And he's like, yeah, we'll be right back after these messages. And he's like, he pulls out an Uzi, and he just splatters his brains all over the fucking wall, and the brain blood matter comes in the symbol of the NBC peacock. Like, he's making fun of a comedian he thought was funny for selling out to, like, this corporatist gig. He's like, except Willie Nelson. We don't fuck with them because the poor guy is having some tax fraud. He's like, so he's singing shilling rolled gold pretzels. He's like, oh, I didn't pay the tax, man. Eat those pretzels until I start nice and salty. He's like, damn, can't we pass a hat around? You know, get this guy off shilling pretzels. You know, but he's like, he makes excuses. I don't mind that, right? If you're trying to feed your family and shit like that, yeah, whatever. I'd do it. You know, if Ford asked me, like, hey, man, we'll put you in a truck, we'll pay $50,000, put you in a truck, and be like, I love my Ford F-150. This motherfucker gets mileage that I find acceptable, and the torque and the horsepower will rip your fucking face off. Ford F-150. I'd do it. Sign me up. $50,000. Hell yeah. Never driven a Ford truck in my life, but fuck it. Right? Sign me up. People understand that. You know? If I'm rookie contract in the NBA, and I've been playing in college for basically no money in high school, and I busted my ass my whole life to make it to the NBA. Now I finally got a contract, and I'm making like $1 million a year. And someone shoves a microphone in my face and says, what do you think about the Uyghur Muslims? I'm like, I don't have a fucking opinion. I'm here to play basketball. Give me that check. Pay me. But if you're LeBron James, one of the wealthiest people in the world, And you're a big activist, and you're standing up for weak people. Okay, dude. How about that blood money China's giving you? How's that taste? Got a lot to say about the United States. How about China? Oh, well, I don't think we should be talking about that. I'm still on the first page of this Malcolm X book that I'm reading. You ever notice that? All the pictures of LeBron James reading books, he's always on the first page. I'm not saying Ford makes a bad truck. I don't know. I was having trouble feeding my family with my $1.3 billion, so, I had to sell out some more for the government of China. Good work. By the way, I noticed we're going to the Olympics in China there. Good job, bud. Where'd COVID come from again? Oh, we don't care. We don't blame people when it comes to COVID. Except Trump and Trump supporters. We blame them. What's your question, Magnificent? Why are so many Americans so angry with each other? Because it's propaganda designed to make us angry with each other. That's why. Because all of our institutions are controlled by the same ideology. And they haven't done shit to benefit the American people in at least 30 years, if not longer. And so they realize that by causing a wedge between people based on immutable characteristics and other things, such as which party they vote for, or what skin color they are, or what sex they are, or what sexual preferences they have, etc., that while they're yelling at each other, they're not looking at the man behind the curtain. That's why. And yes, both sides are responsible. But right now, at this point in time, all of the momentum is swinging one side. All of it. Almost every institution is controlled by groups that identify as being on the left or with the establishment in the Democratic Party. At the top level, the Republicans are no different, though. Mitch McConnell's no fucking different than Chuck Schumer. Not. They pretend to disagree on things, but it's all about more power for both of them. And so many people that used to be the most outspoken when it came to this government power I would rather see no war. But that latter is what's happening, the wag the dog scenario. When you're unpopular at home, find a foreign enemy. Make no mistake, that's what COVID is. That's what climate change is. The people running the show that are fucking us all over, they have to scare us for it to work. Hate each other, but also hate this thing. It used to be another country. It's them. Or a terrorist group. That shit's hard to do now. We have an interconnected world. Back in the 50s and 60s, you could be like, Russia, Soviets. But what would happen if you could talk to someone from the Soviet Union every day and you're like, oh yeah, we're not that different. Like our governments, we have some different values and our governments are at each other's throat, but the actual person's not that bad. Because that's the world we have today. It's interconnected. So it's harder. Look at the Russia shit. They pushed that Russia shit. They shoved it down our throats for 4 years. All a fucking lie. And even Democrats, when it was like 90% of what was on, the network news and the cable news outlets, Russia. Every time they pulled Democrats, Russia was at the fucking bottom of the list. No Democrat. Like, the average Democrat was like, I don't really give a shit. They might have cared about climate change or the economy. The boogeyman of Russia wasn't working. What if you could take that boogeyman that's a person or people or a country and make it something ethereal? Like the climate. The enemy is the change happening to the climate. and it's going to kill us all. The enemy is COVID, the disease, and it's going to kill us all. COVID worked tremendously. The amount of authoritarian policies that they were able to push all throughout the world, and especially in places like Australia, Canada, the United States, the UK, etc., it's tremendous. They couldn't believe how well it worked. But it's starting to play out. Thanks for the follow, Boston Sports Fan. So now we need a new boogeyman. Climate. The climate. They'll always try the climate. Did you know that 2021... If you had to guess, let me just ask you. 2021. More hurricanes than average or less? Less. What's up, HVAC Attack? Great to see you, man. Hurricanes in 2021 were unprecedented, as in unprecedentedly few. Globally, 2021 had the fewest hurricanes ever in the satellite era. Why didn't you hear that reported? Let me ask you this. Let's go way back to the summer of 2021. Which state in the summer of 2021 had the most COVID cases? Go. It's July 10th. I turn on CNN. Let's see what CNN's up to today. Oh, they're covering COVID. They're talking about a state that has the most COVID cases. Which state is that? July 10th, 2021. Oh, no, you guys are way off. It wasn't New York. Summer. Which state? CNN? Oh, they're talking about. MSNBC? Oh, they're talking about. Yeah, Invalid gets it. It was Florida. Thanks, HVAC Attack. Thank you so much for the subs. I really appreciate it. You couldn't miss it. It was everywhere. The New York Times was talking about it, and ABC News, and Jake Tapper over at CNN, and Rachel Maddow was talking about it, and the Democrats were talking about it, and Jen Psaki was talking about it, and Joe Biden was talking about it. Fauci was talking about it. Most cases, Florida. Most cases, Florida. Most cases, Florida. Now let's go to October 2021. Which state had the least cases? October 2021. It was Florida. But you might not know that. Now, my audience will know that. But you know why you might not know that? They didn't report that. It wasn't on the news every day. Jen Psaki wasn't talking about it. The cases that were having a rush then were cases like New York and New Jersey and California. They had the highest cases. But it wasn't a big deal. It wasn't reported on like it was Florida. Some Florida has high cases, we got to look at cases. And oh my God, Florida's doing the worst. And look how bad Florida is. But And then when Florida has the lowest cases and these Democrat states have higher cases, they say, well, cases aren't that important. We're not going to report cases. And then if we get back into the summer of 2022 and there's a lot of cases in COVID in Florida because it's seasonal, in the South you're going to see more cases when people are indoors in the heat. In the North you're going to see more cases when people are indoors because of the cold. And so they'll go back to Florida. Look how bad Florida is. I want to push climate change as a serious thing. It's a year where we have near record high hurricanes. You know what I'm doing? Talking about how there's near record high hurricanes this year. My God, this is horrible. Climate change. Oh my God. Near record high with hurricanes. This is horrible. We're all going to be dead. And then if the next year there's a record low, you know what I do? Okay, talking about hurricanes this year. Yeah, hurricanes are bad. Anyways, moving on. Ted Cruz went to Cancun. That's how I report it. And then the next year, if there's a lot of hurricanes, I go, my God, it's time to talk about hurricanes again. Climate change and hurricanes. And then the next year, if there's not many hurricanes, I say, we don't really see Ted Cruz went to Cancun. And then, yeah. See how that works? Science. When the data fits your narrative, you talk about the data. When it doesn't, you fucking ignore it. That's it. That's science. And you might say, but Rob, don't you kind of do that? Yeah, we all do to an extent. But I'm not the voice that's in charge. And I'm not telling people that they need to make sacrifices and we need to take their rights away. And perhaps they shouldn't be allowed to grocery shop if they're wrong. All right. It was a good show tonight, man. I'm going to have to clip, if y'all missed it, my friend that called in there, or that tried to call and called me a fat fuck. That's going to be my YouTube video, if I can get that part clipped. This is good stuff. It was a great laugh. I feel good. I feel good about that. Good stuff. So, we're going to find someone to raid. Oh, how about American Nacho? He's probably playing a game, but... Tomorrow, 7:30, I'll be on probably around 7. 7:30 will be the first show in a series that I'm going to be doing with Lecture Fan. And it's going to be a 1-hour show. It's going to be from 7:30 Eastern Time to 8:30 Eastern Time. We're going to try to keep it to 1 hour. And it'll be one Tuesday every month where we're going to look ahead to the 2022 election. Talk about what we think the issues are that are important, what our predictions are for how it's going, things like that. So, should be fun. I really like Lecture Fan. He's one of my favorite people to talk to. What's up, Seniority Genesis? Nice to hear from you. So that's going to be tomorrow. I'll probably start streaming around 7. That show's going to start at 7:30. It'll go 7:30 to 8:30. Then I'll probably stick around for a little while afterwards. Yeah, I agree. Listen, I ain't going anywhere from Twitch. Don't get me wrong. I try my best to build, I sort of have a middling audience. I don't give a shit. I'm putting myself out there. I do this for entertainment. I like working with people. I like working with BPF. I like working with Lecture Fan. I like talking with CTV, so it's all good. So that'll be tomorrow. Wednesday, I'll be debating someone named Lorenzo. I don't really know what the topic is. COVID and vaccines, I think. So I did lose some weight. Thank you. I'm trying to lose a lot more. But I got some things in the work. So hopefully trying to grow the channel, trying to hire an editor. I just got no monies. So, but I'm trying to make it work. Because I do think that we need a bigger community. And I think it's important that in platforms like Twitch, that cater to younger people to have conservatives in those venues, because that's important culturally, I think. So go back and watch the middle part of this stream and laugh for a solid 20 minutes straight. It was good stuff. So, all right, let's raid American Nacho. Please enjoy the raid. I'm humbled that anyone watches me. I really, really am. You guys make the show. You make it entertaining, and that's why I do it, because it's entertaining. So, thank you so much for that. I will see you around 7 p.m. tomorrow unless something comes up. Thank you all so much, and as always, have a good one.
What does this have to do with anything? Nice. Thanks for the raid, Rob. Appreciate you, bro. Hope you had a good stream. We're watching this CTV versus BPF today, so sorry if you guys have seen it already. I haven't seen it yet. I was told it was pretty good, so welcome. If you don't know who I am already, right-leaning, conservative-ish. Good song. Socially conservative, right-leaning, right-wing.